Chapter 266. There's another piece of good news. Chu Yang calmly said. No one knows that I killed them. Nonsense. Gu Duxing rolled his eyes. So you should prepare to avenge your brother. Chu Yang continued, if I'm not wrong this time, your Gu clan will be up against the Xie clan. Xie clan? Gu Duxing scratched his head. What does this have to do with the Xie clan? Xie Danqiong killed one of your king-level masters. So I attacked right after he attacked. The two of us closely cooperated. Our cooperation was flawless. And we killed 3 of the 4 people from your Gu clan in one fell swoop. Chu Yang mischievously laughed. Gu Duxing finally understood. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so this basin of dirty water was carried by young master Xie Danqiong. You're absolutely right. Chu Yang snapped his fingers and sighed. Xie Danqiong is a good person. He did good deeds but still left his name behind. If you don't keep a low profile, can you? Gu Duxing sighed slightly. He looked at Chu Yang with a helpless expression. Chu Yang said it lightly, but how could Gu Duxing not know how big of a risk Chu Yang took? Chu Yang's cultivation was only that of a martial great master. A martial great master. But under the watchful eyes of 40 to 50 king-level masters, he killed 2 important people. Then with a golden body, Gu Duxing didn't think about what methods Chu Yang used. But he only needed to think. He would break out in a cold sweat. What was Chu Yang's status now? To put it bluntly, Chu Yang's safety was directly related to the outcome of the war between the 2 countries. But he couldn't afford to make any mistakes, not even the slightest mishap. To put it more seriously, even if Chu Yang had caught a cold, a sneeze could affect his train of thought for a moment. It could lead to a problem in a certain area. But under such circumstances, Chu Yang dared to take the opportunity to kill Gu Yenyang and Gu Yenyu. Why? For his brother. For Gu Duxing. Because Chu Yang knew that his childhood misfortune was largely due to Gu Yenyang and his brother. Because Chu Yang knew that these 2 people hadn't given up on killing him until now. Because Chu Yang knew that with these 2 people around, he would never be able to stand out in the Gu clan. Because they were the direct descendants of the Gu family. If the 2 of them were capable, Gu Duxing wouldn't have said anything. But Ran Ti found that the 2 of them were worthless. Moreover, they were jealous of others' ability. They played with power and were vicious and merciless, treacherous and cunning. Therefore, the reason why Chu Yang struck this time was all because of Gu Duxing. Gu Duxing never said any words of thanks. There was no need to say it, much less say it out loud. However, he would remember this favor. Although this matter wasn't done openly, it was done once and for all. Gu Duxing's future troubles would be removed from the root forever. If it were up to Gu Duxing himself, he would probably not lay a hand on these 2 people in this lifetime out of consideration for his foster father's kindness. The night passed in silence. Until tomorrow morning, the battle in the imperial city finally came to an end. Chu Yang and Gu Duxing's white robes fluttered in the wind as they stood in front of the imperial palace. They really didn't know how intense the battle was last night. The entire imperial palace was still covered in thick smoke, but it was basically a pile of ruins. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that there wasn't even a complete palace left. The imperial palace was completely destroyed. The one who reaped the most benefits was probably Chu Yang. Because after entering the imperial palace last night, he helped GMO a few times. After seeing that there weren't any problems, he turned around and went to the treasury. How could Minister Chu let go of such a heaven-sent opportunity to fish in troubled waters? The guards of the treasury were already scared out of their wits. Chu Yang had the calamity sword in his hand, so how sharp was it? He directly cut open a big hole and went in. This time was of the essence and there was no time to absorb it. But Chu Yang had the calamity space now. He waved his hand. Collect for me. Collect for me. After shouting like this a few dozen times, the treasury was empty. Then he went out. Otherwise, how could he have rushed out through the thick smoke and fire to kill Gu Yenyang and his brother? What the kings and dukes of the 10 great clans didn't know was, the place where the fire burned the brightest was where the imperial palace's treasury was located. It was close to noon. 3 figures walked out of the imperial palace dejectedly. It was the young master of the Luo clan, Luo Kuwu. He was cursing and swearing all the way. His eyes were purple like a panda's. From afar, He could be heard shouting, "Motherfucker, too despicable! Too despicable! This bastard Xiadenqiong, he actually dared to trick me. If it wasn't for..." Behind him another male came out. His hair was disheveled and he gritted his teeth. "Motherfucker, why am I so unlucky? The moment I went on stage I met this little poisonous thing. Motherfucker, how am I supposed to play?" Then Tu Qianhao came out with a sour face. Without a sound he walked away. "Arrogant my ass. Didn't you also not get it?" Luo Kuwu spat behind him, provoking him with a threatening gesture. His stomach was full of anger, and he was ready to vent it all on his opponent. Tu Qianhao fiercely turned around and glared at Luo Kuwu as if he wanted to eat him. Luo Kuwu didn't show any weakness. He stuck out his chest and shouted, "Tu Qianhao, you don't agree?" Tu Qianhao angrily spat and said, "If it wasn't for your elder sister's sake, I would have been an old man." He then turned around and walked away. Luo Kuwu became furious. He chased after him and shouted, "You and my elder sister haven't become intimate yet. Fuck. You really think of yourself as my brother-in-law. Fuck. You're calling me an old man." Luo Kuwu spoke till here, and suddenly jumped up like an explosive. "Stop. Today I'm going to ask you, are you going to marry my sister or my aunt?" "Stop, stop, stop." Tu Qianhao ignored him and walked away. The corner of Chu Yang's mouth twitched as he saw this. This brother-in-law and this little uncle are really tiske. I finally understand why Luo Kudi is so unruly. Chu Yang rubbed his chin and said with a profound look in his eyes, "I also understand." Gu Duxing looked at Luo Kuwu and nodded cautiously. Then, he heavily sighed and said, "If the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. Perhaps his foundation isn't here." Chu Yang's eyes seemed to be contemplating something. He seemed to be racking his brains. "This statement is very reasonable." Gu Duxing frowned. "But," he nodded honestly, "perhaps it's his father." Then Odu Shao came out. This future poison spirit was in a tragic state. His left eye was black and blue and his right eye was red. His clothes were torn, and half of his snow-white thighs were exposed. Half of his buttocks were faintly discernible as they twisted. They were full of vague beauty. He limped as he walked and muttered, "I'm so unlucky. I ran into Ao Xiayun, this abnormal person who isn't afraid of poison." Li Xiong too fell down with a bang sound. His nose was bruised and his face was swollen. 2 king-level experts of the Li clan followed him and caught him. "Young master, are you all right?" "Fuck. How many times have I told you to call me Hero Li?" Li Xiong too opened his eyes wide like a bandit. Then he turned his head and shouted, "Emoanyun, I won't let you off. Let's wait and see." A few more people came out one after another. Then Xie Danqiong, one of the 12 peerless, also came out with a gloomy face. His handsome face was still white and clean, but his clothes were worse than a beggar's. He didn't say a word and sped away. These people who came out had one thing in common. They obviously saw Chu Yang and Gu Duxing in snow-white clothes, but none of them came forward to greet them. These guys were all proud and arrogant. They all thought, "You are from the upper 3 heavens and we are from the lower 3 heavens. We belong to 2 different worlds. Our paths are different." Moreover, they were embarrassed to come forward and greet them in such a sorry state. It was already bad enough to lose face in the lower 3 heavens. If they lost face in the upper 3 heavens, they waited for a long time but no one came out. Chu Yang and Gu Duxing were getting impatient. Then they saw 3 more people come out. Mo Tianyun and his 2 king-level masters of the Mo clan came out with dejected faces. Their faces were gloomy. It seemed that they didn't get anything. "Let's go." Mo Tianyun coldly snorted. Just as they were about to leave, they saw Chu Yang. Mo Tianyun rolled his eyes and came forward to greet them. His face was full of enthusiasm. "The 2 Chu masters are nothing. We just want to see if that saber is real." Chu Yang smiled and said, "Master Mo, what are you doing?" He looked at the eye-catching 5 finger marks on Mo Tianyun's face. "Cough cough. My skills are not as good as others." "Oh Xiayun sigh." Mo Tianyun sighed. It was as if he couldn't bear to look back on the past. Then he blinked and said, "That saber is in Ao Xiayun's hands. Mo Tianyun naturally knew the purpose of these two Chu masters of the upper three heavens. When he saw them come, he immediately said something about Ao Xiayun. If I can't get it, you Ao Xiayun won't have it easy either. Chu Yang understood and nodded. He comforted him meaningfully. Brother Mo, don't be discouraged. Even if you can't get this saber, isn't there still a sword? How could Chu Yang not understand Mo Tianyun's sinister intentions? On the side, Gu Duxing had some disdain in his heart. So many people passed by and no one said anything. You Mo Tianyun just came out and you're already snitching. When Mo Tianyun heard Chu Yang's words, his eyes brightened. He laughed and said, Master Chu, I'll take my leave first. Brother Mo, please. Chu Yang smiled warmly and cupped his hands. Finally, in the thick smoke and fire, Ao Xiayun and the three king-level masters of the Ao clan walked out laughing. On his shoulder, there was a long and narrow leather bag. It was the sunlight saber that had caused such a fierce fight. It seemed that it had fallen into the hands of the Ao clan. When he saw Chu Yang, Ao Xiayun's face was slightly unnatural. He immediately went forward and said warmly, Brother Chu. Chu Yang smiled and said gracefully, Brother Ao, can I take a look at this saber? When these words came out, the three king-level masters of the Ao clan all showed a cautious expression. They looked at Chu Yang with vigilant eyes. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. What's wrong with that? Ao Xiayun casually took the saber off his shoulder and generously handed it over. Since the other party had made such an open and above-board request, he definitely wouldn't snatch it. If he said he wanted to take a look, then he would take a look. Ao Xiayun was well aware of this point. Chapter 267. On the blade there was a symbol of the sun. Naturally, Chu Yang was very clear about this, because he had carved it with his own hands. But at this moment Chu Yang seemed to have discovered a new continent. He looked at the symbol with deep eyes and pondered for a long time. After a long time he returned the blade and said, Thank you for your trust, Brother Ao. Ao Xiayun said, Brother Chu, you don't need to be so polite. This blade was snatched from someone else. If Brother Chu likes it, you can take it and study it for a few days. Chu Yang laughed and repeatedly declined. He thought, if I really take it and run away, I can guarantee that you will immediately fight me. Ao Xiayun took back the blade and said with a smile, regarding the secret of this blade, I have already studied it for a while, but I still couldn't find anything. Does Brother Chu have any advice? I really don't have any. Chu Yang said sincerely, however. I seem to have heard that this sunlight saber needs to be used together with the moonlight sword to display its full power. But the rumor has been around for so many years, whether it is true or not, I am not sure. Ao Xiayun's eyes flashed with a strange light and said meaningfully, Brother Chu is right. So the three of them returned side by side. On the way back they saw a banner fluttering in the wind. It was Diwu Qingrou's arrival. Since this matter had come to an end, Diwu Qingrou naturally wanted to take a look. With a shout, the oncoming troops stopped and the cavalry immediately separated to two sides, revealing a carriage. The curtain of the carriage was lifted and Diwu Qingrou was seen sitting peacefully in the carriage. Seeing Ao Xiayun and Chu Yang standing together, each of them tall and straight with an unfathomable expression, Diwu Qingrou frowned deeply. So it is Elder Ao and the two elders Chu. Diwu Qingrou sat in the carriage motionlessly and said in an indifferent voice. Chu Yang's heart trembled. Diwu Qingrou's words were in the wrong order. If he really recognized his identity, he should have said, so it is Elder Chu and Elder Ao. But now he put Ao Xiayun in front of him. What did this mean? Chu Yang's face did not change, but he immediately made a decision in his heart. There was no need to wait for the moonlight sword. As long as he left Diwu Qingrou's sight today, the two elders Chu must disappear immediately. Otherwise it would be too late. Prime Minister Diwu. The three of them smiled and led the way. It seems that Sunlight Saber was obtained by the Ao clan. Diwu Qingrou smiled. Congratulations, Duke Ao. I was just lucky. Ao Xiayun said modestly. We still have to see if we can decipher its secret. Prime Minister, you also know that this is not an easy task. Haha, I believe that Ao Gong has the strength. Diwu Qingrou chuckled, but his eyes were fixed on the saber in Ao Xiayun's hand. Diwu Qingrou hated Sunlight Saber, but he was also curious about it. Please take a look, Prime Minister. Aoxiayun smiled and generously handed the saber over. Wuxian stepped forward, took the saber, and handed it over to Di Wuqingro. Di Wuqingro casually waved his hand. The saber of a knight beside the carriage broke into 2 pieces with a schwa sound. It is indeed a good saber. Di Wuqingro exclaimed in admiration. Then, he looked at the sun pattern on the saber and pondered with rapt attention. After a while, Wufu returned the saber. 3 dukes, please take your time. I originally wanted to go to the royal palace to clean up the mess. Then I will have to pay a visit to Duke Ao. Di Wuqingro smiled gently. Duke Chu, may I ask when you will return? When it is time to return, we will return. Chu Yang smiled reservedly. For now, I will have to trouble Prime Minister for a while. Duke Chu is too polite. Di Wuqingro smiled. Whenever Duke Chu is free, I will be waiting for you. At that time, let's drink and chat. How about it? That is my wish. I dare not ask. Chu Yang smiled gracefully. Then I will take my leave first. Then Aoxiayun and Chu Yang made way for Di Wuqingro's carriage to pass. Chu Yang acted as if nothing had happened as he walked forward with Aoxiayun and Gu Duxing. However, he could faintly feel a meaningful gaze lingering on his back for a long time. This feeling made King of Helchu's hair stand on end. Chu Yang had no intention of lingering. Aoxiayun was also afraid of long delays. The 5 of them walked quickly and arrived at Heaven-Reaching Tower. After reluctantly saying goodbye, Chu Yang and Gu Duxing returned to their own rooms. We must disappear immediately. Once the door was closed, Chu Yang said with a serious expression, He found us? Gu Duxing asked. Not necessarily. If he was sure, he would have taken him down on the spot. Chu Yang said, however, in these few days, Di Wuqingro should be using his own channels to investigate our identities. Then, the surroundings of Heaven-Reaching Tower are probably filled with Di Wuqingro's scouts. Gu Duxing said, How do we get out? We will leave the same way we came in. Chu Yang came to the window and looked outside through the curtains. He could see far and near, high and low. There were already many people watching this place. These people looked very normal, but there was a special kind of hostility and vigilance that was very strong. If I were Di Wuqingro, Chu Yang frowned and said softly, I have not confirmed their identities yet. I can only monitor them for now and wait for news. Plus, these 2 must think that they have fooled me. So we need to wait for the news to be confirmed. If these 2 leave, it will be at night. Gu Duxing whispered, so we don't need to wait until night? Yes, we will leave now. Chu Yang said casually. Do you want to write a letter to Di Wuqingro? Gu Duxing pondered for a moment and said, Since Grand Duke Chu is going to disappear, writing a letter to attack him is not a bad idea. It's better not to write. Chu Yang paced 2 steps and said, If we continue to act innocent, it will be easy to anger him. This will not be good for our next plan. Plus, even if Di Wuqingro is sure that we are fakes, he cannot be sure that King of Helchu is here personally. Chu Yang said this and his eyes suddenly lit up. He quickly stopped and clapped his hands. That's right. We should write a letter to Di Wuqingro. Gu Duxing fainted. Just now you said not to write a letter to Di Wuqingro, but now you agree? Di Wuqingro knows that people like me and him will not do such a thing. Because that will make us look like villains who are intoxicated with success and immature. So, he will also think that if I am really King of Helchu, I will not leave such a letter. But I did. What do you think he will think? Gu Duxing smiled and said, Of course he will be more suspicious. What I want is for him to be more suspicious. Chu Yang laughed. While Gu Duxing was tidying up, Chu Yang had already written a letter to his heart's content and put it into an empty paper bag. On the outside of the paper bag, he wrote, To Prime Minister Diwu. Chu Yang bowed. Then he threw the pen and laughed. He pulled Gu Duxing to the front of the mirror and carefully modified it. After a short while, Chu Yang rolled up a quilt in front of the curtains and placed it on the chair. He folded the quilt so that people who looked through the curtains could vaguely see a figure sitting on the chair. Deep in thought then, the 2 of them swaggered out of the door. Di Wuqingro arrived at the royal palace and saw the miserable scene. His face was gloomy and he did not speak for a long time. Are His Majesty and the others okay? Di Wuqingro asked softly. His Majesty's injuries are fine, but after this incident, I am afraid His Majesty's feelings towards Prime Minister this, Han Buchu said worriedly, I am afraid he will be even more dissatisfied. This is not a problem. Diwu Qingro said indifferently, let's go see the palace's facilities and see if they can still be used. At this moment, a group of people came rolling in from another road. A fat eunuch rode on a horse and came forward arrogantly. His voice sounded like a mating duck that had been poked in the butt with a stick. By the emperor's order, we are here to inspect the palace's goods. Diwu Qingro looked at the fat eunuch with a calm expression and said, since His Majesty has sent people, let's guard the guards. In that case, we'll leave some soldiers to guard the place and leave the inspection to them. Yin Wutian looked coldly at the fat eunuch. He could not help but spit and said, eunuchs are good. Sitting on a horse with such a big leg, you don't have to worry about wearing anything. Han Buchu was flabbergasted and laughed out loud. This eunuch was called Lu Ranjia, and he was the head of the palace's internal affairs. He was sarcastic and unkind. Although he looked a bit fat, he liked to dance. Usually, he enjoyed watching the palace maids dance. Moreover, he thought he was extraordinary. He gave himself a name that was full of dancing flavor. Fantasy Night Phoenix. Han Buchu had once commented on this name. Worthy of a eunuch's name. It is very realistic. Phoenixes are a pair of male and female. This Lu Renjia took it all on himself. He really thought about everything from the front to the back. Han Buchu's words were once regarded by the people in Diwu Qingro's group as Great Zhao's #1 joke of the year. But because of this Fantasy Night Phoenix hated Han Buchu to the bone. He had once said behind his back, this bastard Han Buchu thinks his name is very clever. Just look at those 3 words and you will know. Can't say it. He can't even say it when he is a ***. Although this guy was a eunuch, he did not get along with Diwu Qingro. Therefore Diwu Qingro's people did not have a good impression of this guy. With this order, Diwu Qingro did not even have the mood to talk to him. He just turned around and left. Lu Renjia snorted and looked at Diwu Qingro's carriage in the distance. He said, what's there to be proud of? Humph. This humph was very coquettish and gentle. It made the surrounding people shiver. Immediately, he waved his fat hand and said in a shrill voice, go in. After a while suddenly an inhuman scream came from the ruins of the palace. Diwu Qingro, you bastard. The palace's treasury is empty. The treasury is empty. Chapter 268. The treasury of the royal palace was empty. This was not just a treasury. Inside, there were all the treasures that the great Zhao kingdom had collected for thousands of years. There were large amounts of strange metals, heavenly medicines, divine weapons, and countless gold and silver. There were even some treasures that were the only ones. This included too many secret martial arts manuals. With so many things, it would take half a day to move them all. It was completely empty. Looking at the treasury of the royal palace, Lu Renjia wanted to cry but had no tears. His main mission was to come here. But now looking at the empty space inside, Lu Renjia broke down. Besides air, there was nothing else. Even the iron frames inside were gone. He had nothing at all. If a mouse went in, it would come out with tears in its eyes. General Manager Lu Renjia flew into a rage. It was true that there was a battle here last night. It was also true that the royal palace was destroyed last night. It was also true that the dukes of the upper 3 heavens fought here last night. But how many people were there? How could those few people empty this place? What a joke. Who could have done all this? Who in the world could it be? Diwu Qingro. You are digging up the ancestral graves of the royal family. Lu Renjia used a heart-piercing, blood-piercing voice to shout out these words that had already reached a certain level of grief and indignation. Only Diwu Qingro would be able to take advantage of this chaos and loot a burning house without anyone noticing. And he would be able to accomplish all of this. Looking at the empty space here when the question who did it was asked, millions of people would point their fingers at the same person. Diwu Qingro. King of Helchu was powerful, but this was Great Zhao. Lu Renjia immediately ran back. Regarding this marriage, he naturally had to report it to the emperor as soon as possible. In the afternoon, Lu Renjia rode a tall horse with a group of elite soldiers. He carried the emperor's imperial edict and set off for the prime minister's manor. There must be an explanation for this matter. Right now, Diwu Qingro was in his study with an ugly expression. It has been confirmed that the Chu clan of Upper Three Heavens does not have Chu Fei and Chu Nan. This small piece of paper was in Diwu Qingrou's hand. Diwu Qingrou immediately sent out an investigation request after receiving news that the Chu clan had arrived at Heaven-reaching Tower. This was the news he had been waiting for these past few days. It had finally come. Diwu Qingrou's hand clenched tighter and tighter. The next moment, Diwu Qingrou shouted, "Jing Meng Hun! Here! In Wu Tian! Gather the troops and mobilize all the experts of Golden Horse Riders Department who are revered martial artists and above. Capture the Chu clan of Upper Three Heavens. Yes, remember, no matter the cost, no matter the sacrifice. Capture them." Yes, there was a rumbling noise outside the door, followed by the sound of rustling. Then it disappeared and returned to silence. And now GMO, Grand Duke Ji, and Miao Butong had already arrived at Heaven-reaching Tower. Inside Grand Duke Ji Zhu's room, GMO was ready to return to the Three Heavens with his eldest brother at any time. His mission here had been completed. He only needed to go back to Upper Three Heavens to train. GMO had even planned to go to Conglan battlefront to train as soon as he returned to Upper Three Heavens. Using the method that Big Brother Qi taught him, he wanted to increase his strength as fast as he could in the shortest time possible. Wasn't it just breaking through the limit again and again? GMO thought about the wonderful training method Big Brother Chu taught him and his brothers. His heart was filled with confidence. Big Brother said that we must kill our way to Upper Three Heavens. Second Master Ji, you're back? In Ji Zhu's room when GMO entered, Ji Zhu was reclining on a chair, nodding and dozing off. He had no choice. He woke up too early this morning and disrupted his biological clock. Seeing that his brother had returned, Ji Zhu first waved his hand and chased the few family guards out. Then he instructed Miao Buguan, who was standing by the door, to close the door. Then, he lazily lifted his chin and looked at his own brother. With a half-dead attitude, he said these words in a strange tone. "Cough, cough, cough, Big Brother." GMO coughed dryly. He avoided his brother's gaze and laughed dryly. "Big Brother, you're becoming more and more brilliant." "Really?" Ji Zhu pouted and used a very funny mouth shape. He used a very fake and self-satisfied appearance to accept his brother's insincere praise. He calmly asked, "Second Master Ji, did you have a good time outside?" "Good. Good, it was really good." GMO lowered his head and rolled his eyes. When he raised his head again, his face was full of eagerness. "Big Brother, I didn't know before I came out. When I came out I was shocked." "Oh, what happened?" Ji Zhu looked at his brother with interest. "Tired. A cup of water blinded you?" His tone was close to an opera singer's voice. "Big Brother, you don't understand how I feel. This time I have truly experienced the beauty of the earth, the magnificence of the mountains and rivers, the vastness of the sea, and the countless uncanny workmanship. The wind that seizes the fortune of heaven and earth is. I'm really reluctant to go back and forth." GMO used an exaggerated expression and posture. He used a very aria tone and his eyes were full of fascination as he spoke. "Huh, is there a howl?" Ji Zhu's expression was very strange. Yes. GMO nodded like a chicken pecking rice. "It's really too howling. Burping, I even wrote a poem about it." "You can write poems?" Ji Zhu opened his eyes wide. This time he was really surprised. "Of course." GMO shook his head and proudly said, "Listen carefully. It rained for 3 days yesterday. Today I came to the mountain. The stones on the mountain are really hard. The water on the mountain is really sweet. The flowers on the mountain are really fragrant. The girls on the mountain are like fairies. Yesterday they left the mountain and today they came to the sea. The sea waves are really high." Stop. Ji Zhu painfully twisted his face. "Second Master Ji, this poem of yours can be passed down through the ages. You should go back to the lower three heavens and recite it to Father." GMO laughed mischievously and said flatteringly, "Big Brother, the lower three heavens is so fun." "Really? Jiju made a pig face. He suddenly lowered his voice and laughed. Is Sunlight Saber also howling? Howl. It was indeed howling. Jie-ero. GMO replied happily. Suddenly he grabbed his thigh and jumped up. The hair on his entire body stood on end. He looked at his elder brother in horror. His eyes froze. Ji Butong, who was at the side, almost cried out in shock. Second Master Ji. Jiju fiercely slammed the table, unable to restrain his anger. He shouted like a thunderclap, "How dare you!" GMO sat down on the ground, and cold sweat started to pour out. Granny. Boss. GMO's lips trembled. You motherfucker. Jiju roared like a thunderbolt. Do you know that this will kill the entire family? Do you know that once your actions are exposed, it will bring disaster to your family? Do you know how stupid you are? Don't you know you're Granny? Motherfucker. 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 GMO lowered his head and didn't answer. He didn't move, but his heart was crazily fighting back. My granny is your granny. My granny is your granny. My mom is your mom. Motherfucker. 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 You actually said dog ant? Jiju's real outburst had finally arrived. He raised his leg and kicked GMO, causing him to tumble over. His saliva splattered everywhere. Dog is your aunt. GMO screamed and rolled on the ground. He cursed in his heart. It's your aunt. He screamed, Boss, I was wrong. I changed. I won't do it again. I finally understood the doubts in my heart. It turned out that this fellow had also gone to fight for it last night. But when he heard me call out dog aunt, he found out about my identity, motherfucker. His mouth really needs to be sewn shut. Jiju flew up, grabbed this guy and beat him up. His hands were like raindrops, punching and kicking. Jimo's body spun back and forth in the air, unable to touch the ground. In the end, he ruthlessly kicked his brother's fleshy buttocks, sending him flying as if he was kicking a carpet. Then, before he could fly as high as he could, he slapped his brother on the ground with a loud bang. Only then did Jiju stop. Tell me, what should we do? Jiju, who had finally finished venting, turned back and sat on the chair. His whole body was in a tie shape as he said lazily, Oh. GMO, who had been screaming miserably all this time, was extremely proud of himself in his heart. My special skills during this period of time aren't just for show. Boss beating me like this is just like scratching an itch. When he heard Jiju's words, he couldn't help but ask, What do you mean? Bichong is dead. Don't play dumb with me. Jiju slammed the table. I know I didn't hurt you. You dare to call yourself old in front of me? GMO shrieked. Suddenly he was filled with righteous indignation, and jumped 3 feet high. You motherfucker, Jiju. You call yourself old in front of me? Miao Butong closed his eyes, unable to bear the sight. His face was twisted and convulsed. What kind of brothers are these? In an instant Jiju's anger, which had just subsided, flared up again. He jumped up. Immediately after, Miao Butong saw the two brothers, who shared the same father and mother, cursing each other angrily. Then they wrestled on the ground, bang bang bang. Puff puff puff. Bang bang bang. Chapter 269. It was finally over. The two brothers were lying on the ground, groaning with bruised noses and swollen faces. Damn little brat, you've improved a lot. Young Master Jiju hissed and breathed in cold air. He carefully stroked the bruises on his face and cursed, You dared to hit me? I'm your elder brother. Since ancient times, an elder brother is like a father. You're a bastard who deceives his master. These words made In Butong's stomach ache. You have the nerve to say that an elder brother is like a father? I hit you, little brat. Second young Master GMO was lying on the ground with his buttocks sticking out. He tried to stroke his bruised buttocks with one hand, but he kept breathing in cold air and muttering. GMO, wait until we return to the clan. I will report everything you've done to my father, and let him decide on your crime. I'll also report it to the elders to discuss your punishment. Jiju fiercely counted with his fingers. Elder brother. Blood brother. Jimo's face suddenly turned gloomy. You and I are brothers from the same mother. Our hearts are connected to each other. Blood is connected to blood. Even broken bones are connected to each other. I'm your blood brother. You can't be so heartless. If you report this to the clan, I'll be done for. I'll be locked up in the dark cave for at least 3 years. Humph. Jiju sneered. That has nothing to do with me. Say it. What are your conditions? Keep it a secret for me. GMO solemnly raised his head, looking like a hero dying for justice. The conditions are very simple. Jiju proudly looked at him. Say it. I can take it. Jiju bravely said. His face was like a dead pig that didn't fear boiling water. When we return to the clan, you'll put all these things on me. Then, you'll tell the clan to remove me from the position of the clan's successor. I'll take the punishment for you. That's enough. Jiju blinked his eyes and bravely said, Who told me to be your elder brother? If I don't take the blame for my brother, can I still be considered a brother? Yin Butong, who had been restless on the side, heard this and became completely confused. Boo! What kind of explanation was this? No, GMO said emotionally, a man should take responsibility for his own actions. How could I let my dear brother bear such a crime for me? I've decided. Even if I have to go to the dark cave, I will accept it. No. Second brother, you're still young. I should go to the dark cave. Jiju said kindly, I'll leave the family to you. No. Big brother, you are the pillar of the clan. GMO was very determined. Fuck. Do you want to be the successor of this family? Jiju shouted in exasperation. His eyebrows were tightly knitted, and his eyes were full of sullen anger. He seemed to be about to go crazy. No way. I won't do it even if you kill me. I won't do it even if you chop my head off. GMO was impassioned. I can kneel and kowtow, but I can't lose my position as the second duke. My head can be severed and my blood can flow, but my body must be free. Wow. Jiju madly rushed forward and grabbed GMO's neck with both hands. He shook him hard and gnashed his teeth. Will you do it or not? GMO was choked so hard that his tongue was stuck out, but he still said with great difficulty, yes. Yet, I won't do it. Rue Butong was dumbfounded. He was used to seeing and hearing that brothers in other families would fight to the death for the position of the head of the family. He never thought that these two brothers would be pushing each other. It was just the head of the family. Did they have to be like this? But after thinking about it, he felt relieved. These two in front of him would never sit if they could lie down, and would never stand if they could sit. It would be difficult for them to be the head of the family. This situation made Rue Butong click his tongue and sigh. This is really a man of the world. There are all kinds of strange things. Second brother, take pity on me. Jiju suddenly let go of his hand and cried bitterly. Take pity on me. Look at my lazy and sloppy appearance. Do I look like the right person to be the head of the family? I have been driven crazy by father and the elders. Every day I have to learn those dogs hit rituals. GMO burst into tears. Big brother, please spare me for the sake of your younger brother's young age. My young heart can't withstand that kind of devastation. Woo-woo. The two brothers hugged each other and cried bitterly. Su Butong felt dizzy and fell to the ground with a thud. Finally, he couldn't help but hit the ground with his head. He pounded the ground with his hands and cried loudly, You two brothers, please spare me. I'm so pitiful that I've already broken down. It was a farce. Diwu Qingrou's Golden Horse Riders Department had gathered and surrounded Heaven-Reaching Tower. Bao Menghun personally led the team. He was fully armed and on guard. This was a long-range operation to capture King of Hell Chu. Jing Menghun was completely convinced that this would be the biggest feat in recent years. This operation would definitely go down in history. Is the target still there? Jing Menghun asked in a low voice. The target has always been there. The person in charge of monitoring was a revered martial artist. His eyes revealed a happy expression. He suppressed his excitement and said, I have been watching closely. Through the curtains, that person has been crouching in front of the desk. Seems like he is looking at something or studying something. He has not moved. Are you sure? I am sure. Jing Menghun was relieved. He straightened up and smiled with satisfaction. If this operation is successful, you will have made a great contribution. It is all thanks to the king-level leader's promotion. The revered martial artist smiled and saluted. He felt as if his whole body was as light as a feather. It was as if he was riding the clouds. All teams pay attention. Jing Menghen's eyes flashed with lightning. His extremely sharp gaze flashed across the faces of his subordinates. He said coldly, "This operation is of great importance. There must be no mistakes. This could affect Great Zhao's hegemony. Prime Minister Diwu's grand blueprint to unify the world. Do you understand? Is it really that serious?" A revered martial artist asked suspiciously. "I am not afraid to tell you that the person in this room." Jing Menghen was full of apprehension as he pointed at the window. He lowered his voice, but it made people feel even more awe-inspiring. "It is King of Hell Chu." King of Hell Chu. Everyone turned pale with fright. Some people couldn't help but shout out loud. Too shocking. Too unexpected. Too. It turned out to be King of Hell Chu. Ah! Jing Menghen quickly covered the mouth of the martial great master who was about to shout. Then he slapped him repeatedly. He cursed in a very low voice, "Motherfucker! What are you shouting for? What if we alert the enemy?" That martial great master's mouth was covered. His head was swaying left and right due to the impact. His hair was scattered all over the place. It looked like an underwater algae that had encountered a tsunami. Jing Menghen loosened his grip. Then he spat out a mouthful of blood and 3 teeth. He excitedly asked, "Is it really King of Hell Chu?" Jing Menghen looked at him with contempt. He then looked at the others and scolded, "Look at your useless faces. We have only caught one person. Is it worth being so excited? Haven't we caught a lot of people?" Everyone nodded like chickens pecking at rice. However, they couldn't hide the excitement in their eyes. King of Hell Chu must be. King of Hell Chu. Jing Menghen was scolding them. However, he had always been as calm as ice and snow. He was a veteran of Jianghu. But he couldn't help but be so excited that his face turned red. This is really King of Hell Chu. Jing Menghen secretly swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said, "Pay attention. Listen to my orders." "Yes. Team 1, 2, 3. Jing Menghen's voice was low and urgent. It was full of oppressive feeling as if a storm was about to come. Yes. Everyone was in high spirits. Strictly seal every intersection. Once the operation begins, even if it's a rat, we can't let it get out. Understood. Team 4, 5, 6. Yes. Strictly seal the sky. Even if it's a fly. Don't let it fly out. Understood. Team 7, 8, 6. Yes. Unified support. Understood. Wuxian. Yes. In Wuxian took a step forward. His eyes were full of the pleasure of revenge. King of Hell Chu had crippled his elder brother In Wu Fa. This was an irreconcilable blood feud. Now the time for revenge had finally come. You will personally lead your troops to attack from the windows. Understood. The rest of the troops will follow me through the main entrance. Yes. Jing Menghen's commanding ability was undeniable. His leadership ability was also remarkable. Everything was arranged properly. Everyone was in place. Everything was ready. Jing Menghen felt his heartbeat accelerate. Everyone could feel their heartbeats quickening. Their hearts were beating so fiercely that it seemed as if they would jump out of their chests. Their breathing was rapid. It was as if they were old virgins who had just entered the bridal chamber. They had discovered the incomparably beautiful body of the bride. Some people couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. Everyone was waiting for the opportunity to attack. They were anxiously looking at Jing Menghen. They were waiting for him to wave his hand. Time seemed to freeze at this moment. It was motionless. It was so finally, all the troops arrived at their designated positions. Jing Menghen's eyes suddenly lit up. Everyone held their breaths. Jing Menghen slowly raised his right hand. Everyone's heart suddenly jumped to their throats. The next moment, Jing Menghen fiercely waved his hand. His voice was low, but it seemed to affect everyone's soul. Everyone felt dizzy at the same time. Yes, move. Jing Menghen's head shook as he said these 2 words. However, no one noticed King-level leader Jing's excitement. The moment King-level leader Jing uttered these words, a shadow shot out like a sharp arrow. His agility and speed had definitely exceeded their highest level. At this moment, almost everyone had a breakthrough at the same time. That kind of excitement. This operation would be the most perfect operation since the establishment of Golden Horse Riders Department. Arrest King of Hell Chu. Jing Menghun's body swept out like lightning. He took the lead in front. A wisp of green smoke swept across a distance of several hundred feet. He then turned into a formless ghost and entered heaven-reaching tower. In the next moment, like a wisp of moving smoke, he had already silently leaped up the stairs. Shwa shwa shwa. Finally, they arrived. Chapter 270. No less than 10 top-grade revered martial artists had been killed. Dozens of their core forces had also lost their lives. Just a few days ago, he had spoken a few words in this very room. But he had been reprimanded on the spot, and had been called a slave. Every single one of these things was the work of this person. Today your retribution has arrived. King-level expert Jing's eyes emitted hatred and delight. He held his breath and suddenly quietly raised his right hand. It was silent but majestic. The leaders behind him prostrated themselves in unison. Finally, a sound was heard from the direction of the window. It was the sound of Yin Wu Tian breaking the window stem. Yin Wu Tian had already made his move. Jing Menghun didn't hesitate any longer. He raised his leg and kicked the door with the force of a thunderbolt. The door was smashed into pieces with a loud bang. The door was smashed into pieces. Jing Menghun immediately strode into the room. He then shouted in an awe-inspiring manner, "King of Hell Chu, surrender without a fight." Ha ha ha. The fragments of the wooden door scattered everywhere. Time and space seemed to have become mottled at this moment. They couldn't see anything clearly. They could only see a tall and straight figure on the opposite side. He had also adopted a fighting posture. The two palms collided with a loud bang. The person on the opposite side suddenly exclaimed, "Big brother! It's me! In Wutan!" Jing Menghun shouted angrily. He rolled up his sleeves and the fragments scattered in the air flew away like a whirlwind. The view of the room suddenly became clear. The experts of the Golden Horse Riders Department came out of the window behind Jing Menghun, and in front of him. They were emitting murderous auras as they entered the room. Jing Menghun opened his eyes wide. He was dumbstruck as he looked in front of him. Everyone who had entered the room maintained the same posture. They were dumbstruck as they looked in one direction. Over there was a desk and a chair. On the chair there was a quilt rolled up and placed on top of it. The top of the quilt was tied tightly with a piece of rope, creating a position similar to the neck. She was sitting on the chair in a contemplative posture. Apart from this, there was no one else. Jing Menghun turned his neck in a daze. Then he suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed a guy near the door. He fiercely asked, "Where is he?" This pitiful revered martial artist who was rolling his eyes was the one in charge of monitoring. This is clearly. The pitiful Wu Zun's eyes were filled with fear. He was on the verge of breaking down. With a long face, he asked blankly, "Where is he?" "I'm always asking you." Jing Menghun swung his hand and slapped the revered martial artist's head with a loud bang sound. The revered martial artist's head was violently thrown backwards. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and several of his teeth fell to the ground with a ding-ding sound. Then he passed out. He fainted at the right time. He avoided answering the question, although he couldn't answer it anyway. Trash! Jing Menghun threw him to the ground and cursed angrily. "There is a letter here." Yin Wu Tian stood on one side with a gloomy and cold complexion. This was an ordinary letter. On the cover it was written to Diwu Qing Ro. "Chu Yang pays his respects." Chu Yang. Chu Yang. Jing Menghun's blood rushed to his head. He stared fixedly at the letter. "It's really King of Hell Chu." At this moment a cold voice said, "King-level leader Jing, could it be that my heaven-reaching tower offended you? You actually smashed this place to pieces. Is your hatred very strong?" Jing Menghun suddenly turned his head and saw a fat man standing in the direction of the doorway. He was coldly looking at him. His usual amiable attitude was gone, replaced by a rage that was brewing in his heart. "Heaven-reaching tower's shopkeeper, Du Fa Kai. Cabinet Du, your door did not offend me. But your heaven-reaching tower is hiding a spy from Iron Cloud. Moreover, it is our life and death feud. Jing Menghun said gloomily. Shopkeeper Du, you need to give me an explanation for this matter. Explanation? Haha. Du Fa Kai sneered. Jing Menghun, you need to understand. My heaven-reaching tower does not belong to Great Zhao. Let's not talk about a spy from Iron Cloud. Even if Jing Menghun killed your father and stole your wife, he would be our honored guest as long as he could afford to pay the price. Even if the real king of Hell Chu came here with his identity, he would still be our honored guest. I don't need to explain anything to you. On the contrary, my heaven-reaching tower needs an explanation from you, king-level leader Jing. Even Golden Horse Riders Department cannot cause trouble at my heaven-reaching tower. Du Fa Kai said gloomily. Even your lord, Diwu Qingro, cannot. Du Fa Kai's eyes emitted a cold light, but he calmly looked at Jing Menghun. Jing Menghun's face instantly turned ugly. He suddenly realized that the person in front of him was not someone to be trifled with. This person was not someone who could be easily bullied. This was a person from Dark Bamboo, the biggest dark power in the lower heavens. If they really had a falling out and angered Jun Shizhu, that crazy woman would not mind bringing the underworld of the lower three heavens to the lower three heavens to gain experience. As the master of the dark side, Dark Bamboo only retained some respect for the rules, but in other aspects, he completely ignored the restrictions of the rules. Therefore, only Dark Bamboo's forces could come to the lower three heavens to make money. The reason was simple. Who had ever seen an underworld really abide by the law? Fortunately, they were only making money. If they were to do something else, it would be unbearable. Diwu Qingro was currently waiting at the mansion. Opposite him was Gao Shang. Since the major clans of the lower three heavens came to the province, Gao Shang began to live in seclusion. Even if he had to go out, he would wear a veil. Even his subordinates would cover their faces. They did not want anyone to recognize them. Young Master Gao had a misgivings. This misgivings was Gao Shang's nightmare. Although this nightmare had not appeared yet, Gao Shang did not dare to be careless. What a sin! Gao Shang lamented countless times in his heart. Every time he thought of that Miss Hu Yan, he felt as if he had eaten a fly. That kind of feeling did not need to be mentioned. Prime Minister, in your opinion, what are the chances of capturing that King of Hell Chu? Gao Shang asked. Right now, I can only say that fake Duke Chu. I cannot say King of Hell Chu. Fifth Prince looked at the book and said in a gentle and warm voice, anything can happen before king-level expert Jing returns. With such a meticulous plan and a thunderous operation, does Prime Minister think that there will be an accident? Gao Shang asked in astonishment. In his heart, this operation was absolutely foolproof. King of Hell Chu would not be able to escape. Before you do anything, do your best and do your best to do it in the best way possible. At the same time, you have to minimize the joy and sorrow of being on the verge of success. Try your best to think about the obstacles you might encounter. Diwu Qingrou's gaze was profound. Only then can you reap one surprise after another. Even if it is a predicted success, it can still give you a pleasant sense of accomplishment. Any complacency and self-confidence can lead to a crushing defeat. Moreover, with that kind of mentality, a crushing defeat will have a huge impact on your mind. Diwu Qingrou looked at Gao Shang and said, Gao Shang, you must remember this. Gao Shang pondered deeply over these words and nodded. Since ancient times, how many heroes and generals have suffered setbacks when they were about to succeed? In the eyes of the later generations, under that kind of strength, even if they suffered a setback, they would not be destroyed. However, the bizarre affairs of the world are hard to predict. Often, that general would be unable to recover after that setback. His army would be defeated like a mountain nephew, and thus lead to the defeat of the entire war. Do you know why? Too much expectation? Is it because of the heart's devil? Gao Shang asked in confusion. Yes and no. Diwu Qingrou said. It is because they have lost to themselves. He was already preparing to celebrate when he launched the attack that he thought would decide the outcome of the battle. But a failure at this moment was the most fatal. Before this, a person would not be defeated by thousands of failures. But at this time, he would be utterly defeated. Therefore, there have been many war cases since ancient times. Later generations have studied them, but they are still puzzled. Because no matter how you look at it, they should not have failed. But they failed. Military researchers and strategists call it a mystery. But this matter is only one thing. The general's heart was in chaos. His heart was defeated. So any decision he made at that time was wrong. Failure was inevitable. I don't want to fail at this time, Diwu Qingro said casually, so I never think about what happens after the victory. I understand, Gao Sheng said in a heartfelt and sincere manner. When one was about to succeed, it was the time when everyone was the most excited. If they suffer setbacks at that time, what Diwu Qingro said was the most difficult thing, to grasp one's own mentality. You will still be able to move unhindered in the three heavens in the future. This is especially important for your mentality, Diwu Qingro sincerely taught. Yes. At this time, a servant came in and reported, Prime Minister, Chief Steward Lu of the palace has come with an imperial edict. Imperial edict? Diwu Qingro frowned slightly. This was a very distant word. Ever since His Majesty had trusted him, he had been suspicious, he had been on guard, and then he hated him. He had never received an imperial edict. Why did the imperial edict come at this time? Let him in, Diwu Qingro said. Not long after, Chief Steward Lu Renjia walked in with a white and fat body. His face was full of dissatisfaction. To receive an imperial edict, one had to burn incense and set up an incense table in the main hall. The whole family, young and old, would welcome the imperial edict. They would kneel 3 times, kowtow, and greet the emperor. Now, Diwu Qingro was actually receiving an imperial edict in the study room? Chief Steward Lu was not happy. Chapter 271. Diwu Qingro sat motionlessly on the chair and looked at him calmly. This kind of serene yet deep gaze made Lu Renjia, who was standing opposite him, suddenly feel a burst of fear for no reason. He came with an imperial edict, but at this moment, he had a feeling that Diwu Qingro was standing on top of the clouds, looking down at him with disdain. Although there was no emotion in his eyes, Lu Renjia could clearly feel the disdain. At this moment, he, the head chief, was like an ant at the foot of a mountain, being looked down upon by others. This feeling made Lu Renjia very unhappy. He felt that he was being looked down upon. No matter what, he was still a powerful general manager. After losing some of the things that a man should have, Lu Renjia no longer had any requirements for money and beauty. But he cared more and more about power and prestige, especially the feeling of needing to be respected by others. It was getting stronger and stronger. In fact, his self-esteem had reached a perverted level. The imperial edict has arrived. Diwu Qingro received the imperial edict. When he didn't get the kind of response that he expected the most, General Manager Lu looked at Diwu Qingro and shouted again. Diwu Qingro frowned slightly. Then Lu Renjia suddenly felt an inexplicable chill all over his body. Read it. Diwu Qingro's expression was still calm. His eyes were still cold and deep. Just one word was enough to shatter Lu Renjia's perverted self-esteem. At this moment he clearly felt that if he did not read it, he would never have the chance to do so. The 4 eunuchs behind him, acting as guards of honor, were so scared that their 8 legs started to tremble together. By the will of heaven, the emperor decrees. The duck voice just started to read. Read the contents. Diwu Qingro said calmly. Lu Renjia held his breath and almost suffered internal injuries. Diwu Qingro is ordered to return all the items in the royal treasury. Lu Renjia finally could not resist the pressure, and only read out the important parts. The royal treasury was stolen? Diwu Qingro frowned and said to himself, You want me to return it? His voice carried a hint of laughter. Gao Sheng, who was standing at the side, almost laughed out loud. Get out. Diwu Qingro opened his eyes and looked at Lu Renjia. Lu Renjia was furious. He held back his anger and said, Prime Minister Diwu, before I came here, His Majesty had warned me again and again that if Prime Minister Diwu took some things, you must have taken them in a proper way and used them in a proper way. However, those things are the foundation of the royal family. I hope that Prime Minister Diwu can understand His Majesty's difficulties. Well, I will understand, Diwu Qingro said indifferently. This sentence caused Chief Steward Lu to roll his eyes. The emperor asked you to understand. but it was just a polite sentence. You actually understand and did it? The emperor has another verbal order. Lu Renjia gritted his teeth and rolled his eyes. Di Wuqingrou's expression did not change, but General Manager Lu clearly felt a sense of impatience. His Majesty said, he hopes that Di Wuqingrou will know when to advance and when to retreat, and not be a traitor. Otherwise, I will have no choice but to eliminate him at all costs, Lu Renjia said slowly. In fact, this sentence was not the emperor's verbal order. It was a private conversation between the emperor and the empress. At that time, Chief Steward Lu was not far away, waiting to serve him. After hearing these words, he naturally placed Di Wuqingrou in the same category as those out-of-favor ministers who could be exterminated at any time. To be able to make the emperor say such words, could it be that this official had something good to do with him? Inherited prime minister? So what? In the past, there had been many officials whose achievements surpassed the emperor's. Which one of them had not been killed by the emperor? Even if you, Di Wuqingrou, had great power, you were still just an official. Therefore today, Chief Steward Lu coldly said these words to protect his pitiful self-esteem. He looked forward to seeing Di Wuqingrou kneeling on the ground and kowtowing pitifully after hearing his words. If that happened, Chief Steward Lu would proudly say, since you know this, why did you do it in the first place? I am also powerless, and then leave in a huff, leaving behind a soulless Di Wuqingrou regret it. Sure enough, after hearing these words, Di Wuqingrou's face changed. His eyes slowly turned cold. His face also seemed to be covered with a layer of ice. Are these His Majesty's original words? Di Wuqingrou said heavily. Of course. Chief Steward Lu raised his head. Please report to His Majesty that I, Di Wuqingrou, will remember. I will give His Majesty a satisfactory explanation. Di Wuqingrou said slowly. Before Lu Renjia could speak, Gao Sheng waved his hand and said, Men, throw these eunuchs out. In an instant, a few fierce men came in and picked up Lu Renjia and the others. They mercilessly dragged them out. Prime Minister, don't be angry. These words may not have been said by the emperor. Gao Sheng comforted him. I know, this is definitely not the emperor's verbal order. Di Wuqingrou smiled gently. Since this is the case, why did Prime Minister? Although this is not the emperor's verbal order, the emperor must have said this. Di Wuqingrou said slowly. Gao Sheng was speechless. The emperor had said this before, so it was inevitable. There is no smoke without fire. Lu Renjia was a eunuch. Even if he had the guts, he would not dare to fabricate the emperor's verbal order. Now, since he was able to say such words, it must have been said by the emperor. The conflict between the royal family and Di Wuqingrou had been going on for a long time, but the two sides had never completely fallen out with each other. The royal family hated Di Wuqingrou. They could not wait to tear Di Wuqingrou into pieces, but they also knew that Great Zhao could not do without Di Wuqingrou. Everyone was well aware that Great Zhao wanted the country to be stable forever. It wanted glory and wealth to rule the world. But Di Wuqingrou wanted to unify the world and establish an unparalleled hegemony. It seemed like they had the same goal, but it was not the same. People like Di Wuqingrou were fighting for their ideals and ambitions. His lifelong ambition was to unify the world with his own hands and with his own wisdom. Di Wuqingrou did not care about power. Power was only a tool to achieve his goals. Therefore, it could be said that both sides were taking what they needed. Di Wuqingrou was now in power. If he wanted to usurp the throne, he would have succeeded. But he did not. This was an invisible hint. You can be the emperor, and I can be the prime minister. You can enjoy your glory and wealth, and I can fight for my country. As for who this country belongs to, I don't care. I only want the pleasure of conquering the world. This was a silent communication. But this kind of communication, this kind of minister, no matter how powerful, would not be liked by the emperor. But the emperor of Great Zhao could only accept it. Although he was sullen to a certain extent, he could only endure it. Originally, this situation would continue. No matter who won or lost, it would continue until the end of the war. This was the history of Great Zhao. It was destined to be history. But now, because of a eunuch who delivered the decree, because of this eunuch's abnormal self-esteem, this originally smooth development of history took a strange turn. Because once this sentence came out, Diwu Qingro and the royal family had no room to maneuver. Especially behind this eunuch, there were 4 young eunuchs. Next to Diwu Qingro there was Gao Sheng. If it was an ordinary person, Diwu Qingro could kill them all to silence them. This situation could still continue. But he could not kill Gao Sheng. Since he could not kill Gao Sheng, killing this Wu Hua eunuch would make him look cowardly. But if he let them go, the conflict would intensify. Whether the national treasury was stolen or not was no longer important. What was important was the power struggle of Great Zhao. Just like this, the curtains were magnificently opened by an insignificant person with a disfigured body. History was full of coincidences, and it was so dramatic. Who said that insignificant people could not change history? Chief Steward Liu did it. With the identity of a eunuch, he could control the world with just one sentence. He could be said to be the most powerful eunuch in history. It could be imagined that no matter how things would develop in the future, no matter if Chief Steward Liu would be able to live past today, no matter if he would be able to see the sun tomorrow, and no matter who the final hero of the continent war would be, the great name of this illusory Night Phoenix was destined to leave behind a thick and heavy mark in the history of the heavenly layer. The national treasury was stolen. Diwu Qingrou's eyes slowly became sharp. In one night, from the beginning of the chaos to the retreat of the big dukes, it was not more than 20 hours. And in these 20 hours, Golden Horse Riders Department was watching the periphery. There was absolutely no one who left the royal palace with any large items. Not even a small package was taken out of the palace. The time was too short. It was absolutely impossible to steal the national treasury in this period of time. But now the national treasury is empty, and I have to return it. Diwu Qingro sneered. Moreover, there was even a sentence about getting rid of this person at all costs. Ha ha ha. Diwu Qingro smiled gently. But this smile made Gao Sheng shudder at the side. Diwu Qingrou's words revealed a lot of things. But in short, there was only one conclusion. The royal family of Great Zhao could no longer tolerate Diwu Qingrou's monopoly and wanted to take action. How could Diwu Qingrou be the kind of person who would take a beating without fighting back? Diwu Qingrou's habit had always been to strike first to gain the upper hand. But is the county really stupid to this extent? This was the only thing Gao Sheng could not understand. The stupidity of the royal family is far beyond anyone's imagination. Diwu Qingrou's words immediately closed the coffin. From this moment on there was no turning back. Jing Menghun did not catch King of Helchu, but returned to the Gongxiang Manor with a letter and a large amount of money. Content 1. Today, I owe Heaven-Reaching Tower 100,000 silver taels for the loss of goods. Content 2. Today, I owe Heaven-Reaching Tower 100,000 silver taels for the loss of reputation. Content 3. This is the certificate. Signer Diwu Qingrou. Signer Jing Menghun. Chapter 272. When Diwu Qingrou saw this IOU, his expression became very interesting. Diwu Qingrou was already prepared to make a move on Heaven-Reaching Tower and capture people from Heaven-Reaching Tower. He would have to pay a certain price to Jun Shizhu. Otherwise, he would not be able to negotiate. However, Diwu Qingrou believed that if he could capture King of Helchu, it would be worth it even if it was 100 million. But he could not capture him. Secondly, if he could not be captured, then the price of 1 million was too high. After mobilizing so many people, he did not even get a single strand of hair. Moreover, he was humiliated. And he still had to pay 1 million? Thirdly, what made Diwu Qingrou the most unhappy was that even if it was 1 million, then so be it. But why write an IOU? With the status of a king-level leader of Golden Horse Riders Department, how could he not pay? What was even more excessive was that he had signed his name as Diwu Qingrou. Very good. Prime Minister Diwu gently clenched his teeth. Then, he exclaimed in admiration, I didn't expect that king-level expert Jing would have the ability to lead the Golden Horse Riders Department. Moreover, you're a king-level expert in martial arts. Moreover, your calligraphy skills are also very high. Looking at these few words, they were really strong and majestic. Even writing an IOU could be so imposing. You are a talent. Jing Menghun's head hung low in front of his chest. At this moment, King-level leader Jing felt that he did not have the face to see anyone. Very good. Very good. Diwu Qingro took a deep breath and felt the anger in his heart rising. How many years had it been since he could not suppress this feeling? I asked you to capture someone, and all you did was bring back an IOU? Diwu Qingro's chest heaved up and down. His voice was still flat, but his eyes suddenly shot out a light. Forgive me, Prime Minister. Jing Menghun lowered his head. Humph. Diwu Qingro snorted heavily. He finally vented his anger. Or it could be said that he had successfully controlled his anger. Let me take a look at this letter and see what it says. Diwu Qingro took the envelope and closed his eyes. He took a deep breath and kept his emotions in a tranquil state. This might be a letter written by his greatest enemy. No matter what the contents of the letter were, it was worth taking seriously. When you're impatient, you can't look. Then, he opened his eyes and looked at the letter. To Prime Minister Diwu. Chu Yang pays his respects. Diwu Qingro softly read it out loud. He even used his hand to gently pat his thigh. It seemed as if he was appreciating it. These are 10 words. The entire handwriting is very heavy. But every single word has a dangerous and precipitous aura. It's like a sword that pierces into the sky. Diwu Qingro insipidly said, judging a person by his appearance, this person is an offensive character. Han Buchu came forward and looked at it. He frowned and said, Prime Minister, although these words are steep and dangerous, they are full of steadiness. Furthermore, it's extremely strict. It's not all about attacking. That's right. This is a person who can attack or retreat. Careful thinking. Diwu Qingro said, but looking at his strokes, there is a hidden sharpness to them. This person likes to use dangerous tactics. Yes. Diwu Qingro looked at these words for a while and said, it was done in one go without showing any impatience. Shouldn't be fake. Plus there was plenty of time to prepare. In other words, when I met them, he immediately prepared to retreat. King-level leader Jing's futile efforts were not without reason. A few hours had already passed. Then he opened the envelope and took out the letter inside. It was a beautiful semi-cursive hand. Brother Diwu Junjian, I have often heard of your heroic name, but regretted not meeting you. I did not hesitate to travel thousands of miles from Iron Cloud to Great Zhao to meet you. Over the years I have been thousands of miles away from you. We have both won and lost, but I am even more fascinated by you. Brother Diwu Jun's heroic appearance, meticulous planning and strategizing. You have decided victory from thousands of miles away. You are my role model. Thousands of miles of ice and frost, a journey of wind and snow. Finally, I met Brother Diwu Jun a few days ago. It is enough to comfort my life. Brother Diwu Jun has the pearl of wisdom. You have the wisdom to make a unique guess about my origin. I admire you very much. As the saying goes, knowing someone by their reputation is not as good as meeting them in person. But I say that meeting is even better than knowing someone by their reputation. The matters of Great Zhao have come to an end. I left in a hurry, terrified. If I was one step late, I am afraid I would have been imprisoned. I left in a hurry, but the feelings are long. Great Zhao's magnificence and beauty, and Great Zhao's magnificence are all in my heart. In the future I will drink with you and get drunk. The heroes of the world are only Brother Diwu Jun and me. In the future, when I am on the battlefield, I will remember Brother Diwu Jun's kindness today. I will remember to repay you. I am young and have been nicknamed King of Hell. I am terrified. I only hope that in this life, I will not let down Brother Diwu Jun's head. Only then will I live up to the name of King of Hell. We have parted for thousands of miles. When we meet again, it is already the end of the yellow flower. I will see you again when I become a prisoner. You do not have to send me off. Great Zhao is in ruins. Please forgive me. Everyone has their own master. I am in Jianghu. Those who walk different paths cannot work together. Only life and death. Respectfully, Brother Chu Yang. That was all there was to the letter. When Diwu Qingro read the letter, his face was full of smiles. His voice was unprecedentedly clear. When he read it aloud, his voice shook the small courtyard. What an arrogant king of Hell Chu! The veins on Jing Menghun's forehead bulged. He punched his own thigh and gritted his teeth. Han Buchu frowned. Qingyun he pondered. Gao Sheng looked pensive. What do you think of this letter? Diwu Qingro finally finished reading and looked at everyone with a smile. Prime Minister, this letter may not have been written by King of Hell Chu. Han Buchu said cautiously. I also think that King of Hell Chu should not have written this letter. Chang Yuan he furrowed his brows and said this after thinking for a long time. Oh. Diwu Qingro's smile did not diminish. Let him go. King of Hell Chu came here to cause trouble and cause chaos in Great Zhao. His goal has been achieved. Han Buchu said softly, then with King of Hell Chu's clean character. He should not have written such a shallow letter. Yes, after the event it was full of schadenfreude. It was also full of hostility. It was as if two armies were facing off against each other. Chang Yuan he said. King of Hell Chu should not have been so shallow. As for the handwriting, it should be a trap. Han Buchu said, Prime Minister, please take a look. The handwriting on the inside of the envelope is the same as the one on the outside. But there is a slight difference. The outside is too smooth, but the inside is too difficult. Even though it strives to express the meaning of flowing water, but from beginning to end, it is as if two armies are facing off against each other, and it is very tense. King of Hell Chu would not be so impatient. Chang Yuan he concluded. If you think this way, you are wrong. Diwu Qingro said casually. If you think this way, you will fall into another trap of King of Hell Chu. Trap? Han Buchu opened his eyes wide. This letter was indeed written by King of Hell Chu. Diwu Qingro held up the thin piece of paper and said with a firm and unquestionable tone. Ah! Han Buchu and Chang Yuan he were stunned. I know what you are thinking. Diwu Qingro said. First, there is another earthquake in Iron Cloud's officialdom. Plus, the high officials that were captured this time were those that were not discovered before. Their methods are similar. Second, King of Hell Chu used a thunderous method to quell the rumors in Iron Cloud in just a few days. He did not hesitate to kill thousands of people. These two matters are heavily colored by King of Hell Chu. Therefore, you are beginning to suspect that King of Hell Chu did not even come to Great Zhao. Diwu Qingro said casually. Yes, we are thinking this way. Han Buchu frowned. But this way of thinking is wrong. Diwu Qingro snorted heavily. How did Iron Cloud's movements come so quickly this time? In such a timely manner? If the real King of Hell Chu was in Iron Cloud, he would not have handled it like this. With his usual methods, he would have cast a long line to catch a big fish. He would have made us think that our rumors were effective, and then he would continue to kill our people. He could have done it. But he did not do it. Why? This is a powerful move, and I have already planned how to deal with it. But they did not use it. They gave it up on their own just to let us know. This is clearly because they are afraid that the real King of Hell Chu would have an accident in Great Zhao. So they deliberately released a smokescreen. This letter purposely uses an arrogant tone to provoke us and make us think that the real King of Hell Chu is not in Great Zhao. Why? Moreover, when we think about it, the first thing that arises is that King of Hell Chu is still in Iron Cloud. The second is that King of Hell Chu came, but he has already left. Diwu Qingro sneered. When you have these two thoughts, you will be dragged by the nose by King of Hell Chu in the future. Until you are dragged into a dead end, you will not know that the person dragging you along is actually him. If it were you instead of me who was sitting here to preside over the overall situation, then I would announce that even if you were in Great Zhao, you would have been completely defeated by King of Hell Chu, and would have turned into ice-cold corpses. Diwu Qingro's voice was stern. Han Buchu, Chang Yuan, and the others were sweating like rain. Even if it was me, even if I saw through his plan, before catching King of Hell Chu, I could only do my best to minimize losses. It is impossible to completely avoid losses. Send this letter to my bedroom. Diwu Qingro said softly. I want to carefully study King of Hell Chu's handwriting. You should know that this is the only handwriting of King of Hell Chu that has ever been circulated outside. For us, this 100-something is priceless. Yes. Golden Horse Riders Department, continue to organize the evacuation. Evacuate some important things first. Yes. Chapter 273. Order Gao Shangjuan, Yan Chenghuan, and Wu Yongjun to lead the 3 armies to attack Limitless Sword God. We must attack Limitless Nation before summer arrives. Even if we cannot destroy it, we must at least tortoise them. The cold light in Diwu Qingrou's eyes became deeper and deeper. Yes, although Limitless Nation was in the middle of winter, it was not a hindrance to the army. In fact, it was even warmer than the north where flowers bloomed in spring. Every year during winter, the north would rest for the war to start in the south. When the north could start the war, the south would be so hot that it would heat up if they moved. But this time's dispatch was clearly different from the past. Han Buchu and Chang Yunhe's breathing became heavier. They realized that Diwu Qingrou's order this time revealed a purpose. Next summer, the decisive battle with Iron Cloud would begin. And this battle would decide who would be the ruler of the world. When summer arrives, Limitless Nation can only tortoise them. This sentence contained too much information. Prime Minister Diwu was finally going to make his move. After a series of responses, Diwu Qingrou suddenly became silent. After a long time he finally sighed, "If you want to fight outside, you must first settle inside. King of Hell Chu, I will let you take advantage of me first." Then he immediately said, "Changyun Manor, try to keep a low profile. Let the royalists gather and expose them. Put them on the list. If they can live peacefully with us, then that is fine. If not..." Diwu Qingrou smiled deeply. His eyes suddenly shot out a sharp murderous intent. This murderous intent was so strong that it made Jing Menghan, an old butcher who had killed countless people, feel his hair stand on end. And now, King of Hell Chu was with his brother. In an inn, the bearded Chu Yang and Gu Duxing looked like 2 ordinary Jianghu men. Recently, there were too many people like this in Continent City. Gu Duxing was holding his sword and carefully comprehending the sword intent. And King of Hell Chu was lying on his bed. Lying on the bed, motionless, he seemed to have fallen asleep. Even in Gu Duxing's eyes, Chu Yang was already in deep sleep. However, no one knew that King of Hell Chu was inspecting his harvest from his trip to the Great Zhao's imperial palace. He was drooling as he tidied up his tribulation space. What a great harvest! What a great harvest! Haha! Chu Yang looked at the iron frames in the tribulation space and danced with joy. Don't move. Don't touch it yet. Chu Yang pounced over and firmly hugged a piece of metal that was emitting 7-colored starlight. However, the sword tip of the tribulation sword circled around him. Finally, it chose an angle and successfully drilled in his hiss in the blink of an eye. There was only a fist-sized piece of 7-colored iron left in Chu Yang's hand. Fuck. What I say doesn't count. Chu Yang was furious. The sword spirit appeared in a flash and sighed. Just let it suck. It has been starving for more than 10,000 years. Besides, this is for your own good. Chu Yang was stunned. However, he immediately jumped up and picked up a black piece of steel that was the size of a human head. It was shining with a dark light and said, "I will allow the others, but this piece must be used by the tribulation sword after I use it." Nightmare steel? The sword spirit had no choice but to greet the sword point. The sword point flew over and reluctantly circled around the nightmare steel a few times. Chu Yang's heart was suddenly filled with the eagerness of a child who wanted to eat candy but couldn't eat it. For a moment, his heart almost softened. However, he finally held back and said resolutely, "This is of great use. I must use it now. After I use it, there should be more than half left. At that time you can suck it however you want. I don't care if you suck it into dregs, but you must keep it for me now." Seeing that Chu Yang was so determined, the sword point could only give up. "Hey, has the heavy pill formed yet?" Chu Yang remembered that in the Great Zhao's imperial palace, there were only 2 large warehouses filled with precious medicinal herbs. Now they were completely empty. Obviously, they had been absorbed by the tribulation sword. If it was an ordinary pill, a heavy pill that can revive the dead, there are already 3 of them now. The sword spirit said unhurriedly, "Although there are many medicinal herbs in the Great Zhao's imperial palace, there are no treasures that belong to the category of great elixirs. Therefore, the materials for a heavy pill that can really cure any injury are still insufficient." The sword spirit said slowly, "Only the catalyst is missing. Any kind of great elixir will be able to complete the heavy pill." Then, can this ordinary heavy pill treat Emo Qingwu's injury? Chu Yang asked. No. The sword spirit answered very straightforwardly. almost making Chu Yang faint. With such a huge amount of elixirs, it can't even form a heavy pill? Can 100,000 pounds of grass become a Lingji mushroom? The sword spirit asked disdainfully. Chu Yang was speechless. Piles of gold and silver were decreasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. If these gold and silver were thrown out, it would be enough to equip an army of 5 million people. But now they were all turned into dust by the tribulation sword point. Finally, the tribulation sword spirit stopped. The sword spirit smiled with relief and said, "Gold and silver can basically be declared. From now on there is no need." Chu Yang's eyes widened, looking at the small gold and 2 silver ingots left from the mountain-like pile of gold and silver. His hands and feet trembled for a while, and he asked in a trembling voice, "The other metals, do they also need this much?" Cough cough. It should be more or less. The sword spirit also seemed to feel embarrassed. He coughed twice and said, "There are also some things other than metals. For example, medicine, souls, flesh and blood." Chu Yang fell to the ground and roared in agony, "Kill me." Suddenly tears poured out like a fountain. They all say that he is a prodigal and a prodigal. This is directly a prodigal. No, this is a prodigal continent. Cough cough, a continent. I'm afraid it's not enough. The sword spirit said reservedly. Chu Yang finally broke down. After the tribulation sword swallowed a large amount of resources, the sword tip in his dantian had already turned pale gold. And the sword tip had also turned into a silver color mixed with pale gold sparkling. Chu Yang was very worried. If this went on, would his stomach become a luminous object like a lamp in the dark night? Chu Yang's worry did not become a reality. In fact, only he could see the tribulation sword in his dantian. Of course, among so many things stolen, there were many things that the tribulation sword didn't need. Naturally, the leftover trash, after the tribulation sword chose, became the benefits of the tribulation sword master, King of Hell Chu. This included several divine weapons that had already taken shape, a large number of famous calligraphy and paintings, many martial arts manuals and many works of art. There were also hundreds of erotic pictures. Looking at the dazzling array of erotic pictures in different poses, King of Hell Chu was stunned. I can't take it anymore, so King of Hell Chu came out with a whoosh. Gu Duxing was comprehending the sword intent when he saw Boss Chu sit up straight from the bed like a zombie. He couldn't help but be shocked. "Duxing, there are a few books you need to read." Chu Yang touched under his butt and a few books with yellowed pages appeared in his hands. They were obviously old books. "What books?" Gu Duxing was very strange. It was enough to cultivate the sword, why did he need to read books? Besides, when did you hide so many books under your butt? Why didn't I see them? Taking a look, his hands trembled. On sword cultivation, sword energy nourishes my thoughts. On the 5 realms of sword, sword of the king, sword of killing, sword of sentiment, Gu Duxing read one book after another. The light in his eyes became more and more violent, and his hands trembled more and more. The authors of these books didn't necessarily have a high cultivation level, but they were filled with wonderful ideas. Moreover, they were all the painstaking efforts of their predecessors. One of them was actually the last realization of a sword scholar before his death. These books were condensed from the lives and time of countless predecessors. For Gu Duxing's current sword cultivation, it was tantamount to pointing out a bright path. Perhaps after he became a sword king, these books would not be of much use to him. But the current Gu Duxing was most in need of these things. Where did these come from? Gu Duxing clenched these books tightly. His face flushed red. It doesn't matter where they came from, as long as there is something to read. Chu Yang said lazily, "Coming to Great Zhao once, you should at least have some harvest." This harvest is really not small. Gu Duxing hurriedly took a few breaths. Chu Yang smiled in his heart. "Really not small? This is nothing. I even prepared a set for GMO, Dong Wushang, Luo Kudi, Miao Butong and the others. Besides, there is also the entire treasury of the Great Zhao Palace. There are many good things in this matter." Chu Yang's only dissatisfaction was that there was still no way to treat Mo Qingwu's injury. However, there was finally a ray of hope. He only lacked the catalyst. He only needed a rare treasure like a rare herb and the heavy pill would be formed immediately. This news was quite comforting to Chu Yang. Besides, having 3 more heavy pills was equivalent to having 3 more lives. Whether it was his own or his brother's, it was a guarantee. Gu Duxing practiced his sword even more desperately. First, the Gu brothers died. Even though it was not his doing, it was Chu Yang's doing. Gu Duxing felt that this was no different from him doing it himself. Since it was his brother's doing, he had to shoulder it. Moreover, Chu Yang's main purpose in doing this was for himself. If not for him, no matter what happened to Gu Yangyang and Gu Yanyu, what did it have to do with Chu Yang? Why did Chu Yang have to personally take the risk to kill the two? Therefore, Gu Duxing was waiting to shoulder this responsibility. Even though he did not say it, Gu Duxing would never shirk his responsibility. The Gu brothers died, and the Gu clan would soon summon him back. At that time, what should he do? Also, Chu Yang had created such a convenient cultivation environment for him. If he did not advance quickly, who would he be worthy of? Sister Xiao Miao, would she come out early? If she came out and found out that one of her brothers had died an unnatural death, even if they were not on good terms, would she be upset? It was nighttime again. This city was destined to not be peaceful. Finally, on this night, it was the most tragic night in history. A sword light like the dark moon of the netherworld faced the bright moon in the sky and shot up to the sky. Moonlight sword. Chapter 274. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse. The brilliance of the waning moon was still as bright as ever in this pitch-black night. The hazy brilliance was still as dreamy as ever. After the previous fierce competition, no matter who it was, they were both physically and mentally exhausted. At this moment, everything was quiet. Many Jianghu people knew that they had no hope after the big clans participated in the competition and retreated one after another. As for the juniors of Ask the Heaven's Sword and Underworld Saber, no one knew when they had disappeared without a trace. But in this tranquil place, a thunderous shout suddenly sounded out of nowhere. Leave behind the moonlight sword before you go. Immediately after, a breathtaking sword light soared into the sky. A person leaped through the roof at lightning speed and fled at lightning speed. Behind him was another person who was also chasing after him with his sword light. Suddenly, one person chased after the other and disappeared into the distance. Compared to the appearance of the sunlight saber, the appearance of the moonlight sword was even more unexpected. But no matter how unexpected it was, an expert was always an expert. In the heaven-reaching tower, a loud shout was heard and a few people's silhouettes flew high in the sky with a brilliant pressure. They turned in the air and chased after him. Immediately, the entire heaven-reaching tower boiled over as one figure after another broke through the windows and chased after him like lightning. Sunlight Saber had already fallen into Ao Xieyun's hands, so the moonlight sword became even more important. Whether it was Mo Tianyun or the other elders, they were all burning with excitement and somewhat nervous. If Ao Xieyun had both the saber and the sword, once he obtained the secret, the strength of the Ao clan would far surpass them. This was a life and death crisis. As for Ao Xieyun, he was naturally even more anxious. Sunlight Saber was already in his hands, and he was looking forward to the moonlight sword all day long. Once it appeared, how could he not go all out? The first person to discover and chase after him was a member of the Ao clan. The sword light went all the way to the west. Along the way, there were people who jumped out to block it, but the person holding the moonlight sword did not stop and continued to rush forward. The sky was filled with bursts of bloody light. This person was much more vicious and merciless than the owner of Sunlight Saber. Those who block the road will die. He had used his actions to prove these words. He did not even need to say a word to let people clearly understand what he wanted to say. As the pursuers got closer and closer, the sword light suddenly stopped and fell down. Then he disappeared without a trace. The king-level experts looked all around. Some of them jumped high in the sky to look around, but they didn't find anything. Could he have escaped? Just as he was thinking about this, the sword light appeared again. It was about 1,000 feet in front of him, and it dashed swiftly against the wind. Everyone's spirits were lifted and they chased after him again. This time his goal was clear. There was a small hill in front of them. At the foot of the hill was a rather shabby-looking military camp. This unit had been stationed here for quite some time. The military flag was a little tattered. Even those who saw it would only think that it was an ordinary military camp. Only a few people knew that this was the headquarters of the Golden Horse Riders Department. The barracks were only a distraction. Everything under this small hill had already been emptied. In fact, the vastness of the underground space far exceeded that of the surface by several times. The invincible and undefeatable Golden Horse Riders Department was here. Dong Wuxiang dashed forward with his sword in hand, and Luo Kadi chased after him relentlessly. It was as if they couldn't live under the same sky as each other. Bang 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 bang, they fought fiercely in front of the barracks. "Brother, let me live, and I will repay you in the future." Dong Wuxiang roared with grief and indignation. "Less nonsense, I only want the sword in your hand." Luo Kadi was wearing a black mask, and his face was covered with frost. "You really don't want it?" "Absolutely not. You are forcing me." "So what if I force you?" "Why yeah, I'm so angry." "Awur. Hand it over." Both of them mustered up their courage and roared at the top of their lungs with all their might. Their voices were completely devoid of any substance. Luo Kadi praised in his heart while fighting. "Damn it, you really can't judge a book by its cover. Dong Wuxiang, this guy looks like a taciturn gourd, but I didn't expect him to be so good at acting." The shadows of people flew in the distance. The first group of people arrived. Without saying anything, they rushed into the battle and grabbed the moonlight sword with their fingers like an eagle's claw. Dong Wuxiang was furious. He brandished his sword. That person snorted and blood flashed as his fingers were cut. But Dong Wuxiang's chest felt as if it had been hit by a sledgehammer. Blood spurted out from his mouth and nose as he staggered back. If not for the divine sword's sharpness, the sword would have flown out of his hand. The shadows of people appeared in the distance one by one, rushing over like meteors. In the sky, the glorious crown was also gradually gathered. Almost all the people had arrived. Everyone formed a circle, trapping Dong Wuxiang inside. Emo Tianyun stood at the front, his eyes flashing. Seeing that it was going to be a fierce battle, he was determined to get the moonlight sword. Aosiayun stood with his hands clasped behind his back, looking confident and at ease. If there was another martial arts competition, it would be meaningless. With Aosiayun's strength, he could still come out on top. But what should he do this time? "Are you all here to snatch the moonlight sword?" Dong Wuxiang stood with his sword in his hand, looking at the people around him with grief and indignation. Xie Danqiong sighed and said, "Warrior, you can see the current situation. You won't be able to protect it by relying on your own strength. So, it would be better if you honestly hand it over. That way you can still keep your life." "Hand it over? Hand it over to whom?" Dong Wuxiang sneered. Xie Danqiong was suddenly at a loss for words. Yes, even if the other party handed it over, who would he hand it over to in front of these people? Who wouldn't want it? Or rather, who would dare to take it if he showed off? The scene of Emo Tianyun obtaining the sunlight saber flashed in front of everyone's eyes, and they could not help but hesitate. The first person to obtain the moonlight sword, no matter who it was, would absolutely not be able to keep it. He would only become everyone's target and consume his strength. It was precisely because of such misgivings that everyone did not make a move at this moment without prior agreement. "What's wrong? Is it hard to decide?" Dong Wuxiang sneered in a strange voice. "I have a proposal, what do you think?" "What proposal?" "You people first fight. Those who should be killed will be killed, and those who should be eliminated will be eliminated. Only one person is left alive, and I will hand over the moonlight sword to him. How about it?" "Bullshit." Everyone was angry. "Do you really think we are all fools? What should we do? Stand here in a deadlock?" Dong Wuxiang waved his sword and asked coldly. Looking at the black-clothed masked man in the field, Dong Wulei suddenly felt a sense of familiarity. It was a kind of sudden and wonderful feeling, as if this person was very familiar and close to him. He could not help but ask, "Who are you?" Dong Wuxiang snorted and said, "Since you are here to snatch the sword, why ask who I am? No matter what, let's take it first." Li Xiongtu roared and took the lead to rush forward. Dong Wuxiang looked up to the sky and laughed. "Come on." Unexpectedly, he did not evade, but rushed forward with his sword in hand. It was a head-on clash. Li Xiongtu was known for his extraordinary strength in the three heavens, but this time, he suddenly felt as if he had hit a mountain. His opponent's figure seemed to be only a little more than 50 kilograms, but the collision force at this moment was almost several thousand kilograms. It was as solid as an ice-cold iron block. Li Xiongtu screamed loudly and flew out with blood spurting out of his mouth. 2 ribs in his chest were broken, and he cursed angrily before he landed on the ground. Fuck! Who the fuck are you? Why are you so heavy? Li Xiongtu had collided with a bison in the past, but he had not suffered such a serious injury. Such a fact was hard for him to accept. Even if he had been defeated, it would not have been as shocking as this. Dong Wuxiang also retreated 5 steps, and coldly snorted without replying. Li Xiongtu had only looked at his figure, but he would never have thought that the unremarkable saber on the back of this black-clothed masked man in front of him was actually 570 kilograms. If the weight of the saber was added, it would not be much different even if it was less than 400 kilograms. Li Xiongtu was caught off guard by such a weight, and the opponent's cultivation was almost the same as his. How could he not immediately suffer a big loss? Everyone's expression became even more cautious. Forget it. Forget it. Dong Wuxiang looked at the splendid crown on his head, and suddenly shook his head dispiritedly. I thought that after obtaining this moonlight sword, I would be able to concentrate on refining, and be invincible in Jianghu. But I never thought that such a great treasure would not be something that I could possess. He let out a long sigh, and said in a desolate tone, Sword, sword, don't tell me that I am not fated to be with you? The sadness in these few words was overflowing with words and expressions. Everyone's heart was moved. The next moment, second young Master Dong suddenly looked up to the sky and roared, But if I can't get it, don't think that you can get it easily. Suddenly, he let out a long roar, and straightly jumped up. This jump was more than 10 feet high, and under the bright moonlight, the moonlight sword was shining brightly, as if it had merged with the bright moon in the sky. Nobody knew what he was doing by jumping up at this time. They were all at a loss, thinking, even if you can jump higher, but jumping straight up like this without any foothold to support your feet, won't you still fall down? But they saw this person shaking his arm in the air, and with a loud shout, a long rainbow suddenly shot out from his hand. A comet-like tail of light shot out in midair. After traversing several hundred zhang of space, she entered the land of Earth Mountains. With a clang it completely disappeared. Thrown? Yes, thrown. Moreover, it was thrown from a high altitude, using all his strength to throw it. Everyone could see the sharpness of Sunlight Saber, but it fell from the sky without any resistance, and even pierced into a rock and disappeared. Obviously, the Moonlight Sword was as sharp as Sunlight Saber. Such a throw, perhaps it would penetrate several tens of feet into the ground. Moreover, in this pitch-black night, the landing point was very vague. Everyone was furious. Dong Wuxiang shouted loudly. He landed on the ground, and rushed in the direction of his elder brother Dong Wulei. He then shouted, "Those who block me will die, but not be injured." When Dong Wulei heard the words "die without injury," his iron-like face suddenly exposed a strange expression, and he angrily said, "Bullshit. Watch how old he beats you to death, you bastard." His palms crossed and he met Dong Wulei's attack head-on. Dong Wulei had personally taken action, so how could the others join in the fun? Moreover, everyone was most concerned about the Moonlight Sword. With a shout, everyone flocked forward and rushed towards the camp. The barracks wanted to block them, but in the blink of an eye, they were in a mess. Chapter 275. What the hell are you doing? Dong Wulei angrily cursed in a low voice. At the same time he shouted and punched and kicked. I can't explain it clearly now. Dong Wuxiang's face was cold as he attacked fiercely. When did you say Feng Chu? Dong Wulei gritted his teeth. Let's talk about it when we get back. Dong Wuxiang snorted. Make it simple. Dong Wulei glared. It's fake. Dong Wuxiang rolled his eyes. Fuck. Dong Wulei couldn't help but curse. Young master, let's deal with him. The 2 king-level masters of Dong clan came over. Get lost. Dong Wulei shouted frantically. I'll deal with him myself. The faces of the 2 king-level masters twitched. Then we'll go in and snatch the sword? Idiot. Dong Wulei angrily shouted. Stay here and guard the formation. Therefore, the two brothers fought further and further away in the shouting and shouting. They punched and kicked. One leaped and flew, and the other followed closely behind. It didn't take long for them to get far away from that troublesome place. Dong Wulei finally pounced forward while panting for breath after he had made several turns. He didn't dodge or hide. That black-clothed masked man also didn't dodge. So Dong Wulei grabbed his collar just like that. This strange phenomenon made the two king-level masters open their eyes wide. They couldn't figure out what was going on. What's going on? Eldest brother Dong gnashed his teeth. This is just a game. The voice of the masked man changed into a voice that everyone recognized. Second young master. The two king-level masters were shocked. They never dreamed that such a result would happen. Game. Eldest brother Dong grabbed Dong Wuxiang's neck and shouted with grief and indignation. Do you know that I was almost killed by Ao Xia Yun because of this game of yours? Why didn't you say so earlier? Dong Wuxiang snorted and said coolly, if I had said so earlier, would you still be able to take this beating? Good. Dong Wulei was so angry that he couldn't speak. His finger trembled as he swallowed his saliva and pointed at his younger brother. He almost spat out blood. You have guts. You have guts. He nodded fiercely. If it wasn't for me, you would still be fighting inside. Dong Wuxiang snorted. His face was expressionless as he pointed at the two king-level experts of his clan. Lead the way. I'll go back and sleep first. I guarantee that you'll sleep when you go back. Moreover, you'll have nightmares. Dong Wulei's nose became crooked. Big brother, you should be content. Luo Kadi was also in the know. Wasn't Luo Kawu still yelling and rushing in now? Dong Wuxiang said earnestly. Come on, let's go back. Dong Wulei was completely speechless. That king-level expert had called out from the other side of the room. So, everyone had also discovered this situation. Some of the more impatient ones gathered all their strength, punching and kicking at the same time. Suddenly, they felt the ground beneath their feet become empty, and their whole body fell straight down. He fell straight down. Damn. The space here is so big. What is this place? Who cares where it is? Let's find the moonlight sword first. Could it have been hidden by the people inside? It's also because of that despicable bastard. He inserted himself into someone else's lair. This is really fucked up. How do we find them? Suddenly, the headquarters of the Golden Horse Riders Department was in chaos. One after another, the place collapsed with a bang, filling the air with smoke and dust. Then a crashing sound could be heard from the other side. As if a landslide had collapsed, the ground was empty. So, how could it withstand the torment of these king-level experts? In an instant, screams could be heard one after another. Chu Yang and Gu Duxing held their breaths and hid their traces. Taking advantage of the chaos, they also entered the Golden Horse Riders Department. This was really a heaven-sent opportunity. If not for the matter of the Moonlight Sword today, if not for Di Wuqingrou's order to withdraw the personnel here, if not for under such circumstances, the biggest enemy of the Golden Horse Riders Department, King of Hell Chu, could actually come and go as he pleased in the headquarters of the Golden Horse Riders Department. If it was in the past, wouldn't this be a joke? Today, the two's main task was to release those people who had been captured by the Golden Horse Riders Department. According to Chu Yang's investigation, those people were basically locked up here. Of course, the second auxiliary task was to thoroughly destroy. But things were so coincidental. After Chu Yang and Gu Duxing entered, they went straight underground. After passing through 3 levels, they found that the ground below was also a pot of chaos. But what made Chu Yang the happiest was that there was a guy holding a sword, excitedly rushing out. Damn! Isn't that the main culprit of this chaos, the moonlight sword? Chu Yang's eyes widened. Dong Wuxiang's throw actually caused the sword to penetrate more than 300 feet into the ground? Isn't this strength too great? Of course, this was not the time to sigh at Dong Wuxiang's strength. Chu Yang flashed forward, and with a puff sound, he pierced through that guy's heart, snatched the sword, and immediately started a massacre with Gu Duxing. The enemy has mixed in. Not good. Chu Yang and Gu Duxing killed all the way inside. After killing half of the mountain, they found that they did not even meet a single martial great master. Most of them were martial artists and martial masters. It could be assumed that those experts had been transferred away by Diwu Qingro. Chu Yang's teeth itched with hatred. This bastard, it seems that he already expected that I would wantonly wreak havoc here, and actually made preparations in advance. This is really too unpleasant, too unpleasant. The next moment the moonlight sword was already inside the tribulation space. He put it away. Why did you put it away? Gu Duxing was somewhat puzzled. Stupid, if I put it away, wouldn't they not be able to find it? Chu Yang said. But they clearly saw that it fell here. If they can't find it, why don't they look for it with all their might? If they can't find it in 1 day, then they can find it in 2 days. If they can't find it in 2 days, then they can't find it in 3 days. Gu Duxing broke out in cold sweat. He could see through Chu Yang's plan. He simply wanted to completely destroy this place. And he didn't even have to lift a finger. The rumbling sounds were getting closer and closer. Everyone only hated their parents for not giving birth to them with 2 more legs. Quickly, a group of madmen is coming, this mountain is about to collapse. Chu Yang and Gu Duxing were also running rapidly. It should be over there, Chu Yang said. Gu Duxing rolled his eyes in disdain. When they reached here, the screams were almost deafening. Let us out. We want to go out. If they still didn't know, then they would be really slow. Chu Yang didn't say anything and flew forward. With a few schwa 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 sounds, the huge iron chains of the 3 prison cells were cut off, and a stream of people rushed out like a tide. Schwa schwa schwa, Chu Yang continued to work. Not long after, all the prison cells were opened. It was obvious that these people's powers had been restricted. That was why they were trapped in this cell and could not rush out. But it didn't matter. As long as they could get out, everyone would have their own way to break this kind of imprisonment. Mo Tianyun and the others carefully searched layer by layer, but they did not find anything. When they reached this place, they were met with a black mass of people rushing out. These men were caught off guard and trampled into meat patties, but Chu Yang was looking for something else. What are you still looking for? I'm looking for the treasury of Golden Horse Riders Department, Chu Yang said with a headache. This guy is addicted to making money. He is actually looking for some unexpected wealth here. Diwu Qingro already guessed it. Do you still expect him to keep it for you? Gu Duxing curled his lips. Then there's nothing. Let's go. Chu Yang raised his head in disappointment and followed behind the crowd. Together with Gu Duxing, he assumed a clumsy posture as if his strength was being restrained. Then the 2 of them swayed as they ran out. They passed by Mo Tianyun, Xie Danqiong and the others. Then the men went to the lower level. After a long time, boom! With a loud explosion, the entire hill collapsed, stirring up dust dozens of feet high. It's really spectacular. Chu Yang was already standing at a high point. He praised it finally collapsed. In the midst of the smoke and dust, dozens of figures could be vaguely seen. They were tirelessly looking for something. Mo Tianyun and the others had already decided. This was Golden Horse Riders Department, Diwu Qingro's place. The sword had clearly fallen here. If they couldn't find it, they might as well look for Diwu Qingro and talk about the conditions. Besides, if they couldn't find it in 1 day or 2 days, how could they not find it in 3 days? It must be known that as long as the iron rod was ground into an embroidered bull, the heavens would not let down the painstaking effort. Naturally, these men did not know that the moonlight sword had already been returned to its rightful owner. This time, no one who knew the inside story would deny it, because this so-called moonlight sword was indeed created by Chu Yang. As for how this place would develop, Chu Yang didn't care. He only needed to know one thing. These young men would definitely make Diwu Qingro badly battered during this period of time. They would annoy him to death. As for Diwu Qingro's explanation about King of Hell Chu and the like, these men would certainly not believe it. What kind of treasure was the moonlight sword? Even if it really belonged to King of Hell Chu, would he be willing to take it out to set up such a trap? Who are you trying to fool? If you were Diwu Qingro, would you be willing to do so? Just one sentence and they were left speechless. For the time being, there is nothing for us to do here. Gu Duxing muttered to himself and asked, what should we do next? Find a place to hide, and I will add some materials to your black dragon. Chu Yang also regained his seriousness and said seriously, your black dragon is indeed a heavenly weapon, but it is still too weak. I will give you another tempering. Good. In addition, the two brothers are already dead. I am afraid that the Gu clan will soon look for you to return. Chu Yang said lightly. I estimate that we will have to separate before summer. During this time I want to make some preparations. Preparations? Yes. There are some things that I need you to bring to Dong Wushang, GMO, Luo Kudi and In Butong. Chu Yang said softly. There are also some things that I need you to bring to Xiao Wu. In addition, I also have some things that I need you to do in these 3 days. Chu Yang's worried and distant eyes seemed to penetrate the barrier of the sky and went to Mo Qing Wu's side. Her sobs were filled with sorrow for her daughter's future. If any family comes to propose marriage, Mo Qing Wu was young, but she had grown up in a big clan. So, how could she not understand the meaning of this sentence? Am I going to be reduced to a tool for those clans to form alliances through marriage? From that moment on, Mo Qing Wu's heart had truly turned cold. Second brother didn't come to see me anymore. He had constantly sent people from the Zhonglan battlefront to deliver small gifts and toys. Now Mo Qing Wu's bedroom was filled with those little things. But that's not what I want. That's not it. All I want is kinship. Mo Qing Wu's heart was screaming. She was incomparably miserable. All the things that Mo Tianji had sent over had been thrown into a corner by her like a pair of worn-out shoes. Perhaps in this world, there is only one person who still cares about me and still likes me, regardless of what I have become. Mo Qing Wu hugged the scabbard in her arms and gently pressed her delicate little face against the worn-out scabbard. Scabbard, you know, don't you? Mo Qing Wu murmured in a low voice. Only big brother Chu Yang truly likes me. He truly doesn't dislike me. When I met brother Chu Yang, my 3-yin meridian was already crippled. I didn't know at that time, but brother Chu Yang played with me every day and told me stories every day. He even gave me a saber. Looking at them, I knew that the saber was very, very good. Humph, that was given to me by brother Chu Yang. My saber made them break their heads to snatch it. Mo Qing Wu smiled proudly. But her tears flowed down along with her smile. Do you know that the saber that you shed all pretenses of cordiality to snatch was only a toy that elder brother Chu Yang gave me? Brother Chu Yang, I miss you so much. Mo Qing Wu looked at the empty space in front of her and said weakly, I don't want to stay here anymore. I don't like here, although this is my home. Miss, it's cold outside, let's go inside. A maid walked over softly. Okay. Zhan Qing Wu wiped her tears and stood up with the scabbard in her arms. Her little face became expressionless again. Mo Qing Wu's experience during this period of time had greatly changed her state of mind. Since no one cares about me and no one cares about me, even if I want to cry, I won't let anyone see it. Even if I'm sad, I'll only be sad in my heart. I won't let you see me as a joke. I'll only cry when I see brother Chu Yang. The atmosphere in the Mo clan was somewhat gloomy these days. Zhonglan battlefront had undergone drastic changes. The martial arts training ground of the major clans was in turmoil during this period of time. The seal had cracked open. Zhonglan battlefront was filled with all kinds of spirit beasts. The territory was vast, and the pelts and cores of the spirit beasts were very popular goods. Moreover, Zhonglan battlefront was a place similar to the wilderness. Humans couldn't live in it. Therefore, every time they entered it, they would rush out after obtaining what they needed. The major sources of income for the major clans basically came from there. Zhonglan battlefront was also the best testing ground for the martial arts of the younger generation of the clans. As long as the younger generation didn't go deep into Zhonglan battlefront, they could challenge and kill ordinary spirit beasts. Not only could they hone their martial arts, they could also earn income and increase the clan's foundation. It was also the best place for the younger generation to make a name for themselves. Of course, this place had been abandoned for tens of thousands of years. There were also countless spirit herbs inside. And these spirit herbs were also things that the clans longed for. But recently, the seal had cracked open. No one would have thought that when the seal cracked open this time, the 3 Stars Divine clan would come out from inside. 10,000 years ago, they were the mortal enemies of mankind. After the 3 Stars Divine clan came out, they occupied a large area. Then, they used their innate talent to urge the spirit beasts to form one area after another within Zhonglan battlefront. Everyone minded their own business. But once a human entered, they would rise up and attack him. This was equivalent to the originally unorganized and undisciplined spirit beasts transforming into a well-trained army. And these areas were gradually expanding. So far, there was a faint momentum of expanding beyond Songlan battlefront. For the major clans of the lower heavens, this was absolutely unbearable. Therefore, after New Year's Eve, the major clans held on for a period of time. Without prior consultation, they issued a mobilization order and a summon order. They ordered the people outside to immediately rush back to Songlan battlefront lower three heavens, Great Zhao Prefecture City. Chu Yang and Gu Duxing were nestled in a place they hadn't moved for a long time. Both of them were digesting the results of this trip. Gu Duxing's cultivation had broken through to 4th grade revered sword artist 2 days ago. He had taken another solid step forward. And Chu Yang didn't let him go either. Calamity Sword. After robbing the Great Zhao Imperial Palace, Calamity Sword had absorbed the residual medicinal efficacy in his meridians. Unexpectedly, it had made him advance rapidly and broke through to 1st grade revered martial artist. Even though the sword spirit was trying to suppress it, the sword tip and sword edge seemed to have something to rely on. It madly rushed forward. By the time the sword spirit had succeeded in stopping it, Chu Yang was already a 1st grade revered martial artist. The sword spirit wanted to cry but had no tears to shed. And the residual medicinal efficacy was too much. The place where the two lived was not far from Heaven-reaching Tower. Therefore, they could completely see the movements of Heaven-reaching Tower. The major clans didn't find anything in the ruins of Golden Horse Riders Department. As expected, they found the Changxiang residence. The conditions were Mo clan, as long as the Prime Minister can make Golden Horse Riders Department hand over the sword, we will do whatever we want. Ao clan. As long as the Prime Minister can make Golden Horse Riders Department hand over the sword, we will do whatever we want. Xie clan. As long as Li clan. As long as Tu clan. As long as O clan. As long as, of course, they all spoke in unison. As long as Prime Minister Diwu doesn't make Golden Horse Riders Department hand over the sword, we will do whatever we want. For the first time in his life, Diwu Qingro tasted the feeling of being badly battered. Ao clan, Mo clan, and Xie clan were easier to deal with. Their words were softer. However, Tu clan was unreasonable. Tu Qianhao lived in the Prime Minister's residence, and said, "If you don't give it to me, I won't leave." As for Li Xiong too, he commanded his king-level experts to compare notes with Golden Horse Riders Department every day. He said, "Compare notes just once. Well, if you don't give it to me, then I will beat you until you give it to me." Diwu Qingro wouldn't have cared if it was an ordinary person. He would have directly ordered them to be expelled, locked up, or killed. However, these people were the treasures of the 3 great clans. They weren't ordinary people. How could Prime Minister Diwu endure this? He urged Jing Menghun more than once, "It's best to quickly find that sword, and then throw it out. Let them fight amongst themselves and do whatever they want." However, Jing Menghun was depressed. "Where can I find that sword?" Jingyu Master was also very anxious. In fact, he had to swallow his anger and gather his subordinates. He couldn't blame the other party for destroying his headquarters. Instead, he had to help them find the sword. However, the small hill was turned over and over again. Almost every stone was knocked open and turned into powder. The entire hill was flattened and then turned into a big pit. The pit got deeper and deeper, but they still couldn't find the sword. So much so that this place became a fertile field in the end. There was no other place where the soil was more delicate and fertile than this place. Chapter 277. Vote Golden Keyboard Award Link. Kudarjit in the royal palace, Emperor Zhaozhe was shivering. This emperor grew up in a sheltered place. He never dreamed that Diwu Qingro's methods would be so ruthless and bloody. He did not leave any leeway. He did not care about the dignity of the royal family. He did not care about the lives of tens of thousands of people. He did not care about the military officials. There was only one word for everyone in his hands: kill. The imperial concubines were huddled together. Their faces were pale and bloodless. Their bodies were shivering like the wind. Prime Minister Diwu has arrived. A soldier at the door announced with a blood-stained saber. But it sounded like a death knell. Diwu Qingro has arrived. Emperor Zhao's lips turned purple. He said with a trembling voice, "What is he doing here?" No one answered him. There was only silence. The sound of steady footsteps was heard. Diwu Qingro had a gentle smile on his face. He calmly walked in step by step. He was wearing an ordinary cotton robe, and with his hands clasped behind his back, he walked in leisurely. His expression was still elegant and calm. It was as if he did not care about anything. But Zhao seemed to see a demon from hell covered in blood. His eyes turned white, and he almost fainted. "Greetings, Your Majesty," Diwu Qingro greeted. Good. Greetings, Prime Minister." Zhao tried hard to control his facial muscles. He wanted to show a smile and not lose his temperament. But he did not succeed. Diwu Qingro stood with his hands behind his back. He slightly glanced. A guard quickly brought a chair and placed it behind him. Diwu Qingro smiled and sat down gracefully. "Your Majesty." You and I are monarch and minister. It is fate." Diwu Qingro smiled inside. He said, "I originally thought that we could work together to unify the country and stand at the peak for the world to worship. I have the ability to unify the country, and I also have the courage to do so. It is a pity that Your Majesty does not trust me." Diwu Qingro sighed and looked at Zhao with pity. "Why bother? Yes, it is my fault." Zhao did not dare to look at him. He said with a trembling voice, "Yes, I was really wrong." Diwu Qingro chuckled. "Back then you didn't trust me. I had no choice but to find an opportunity on the battlefield to seize power. But I didn't expect that. It would be much better than you giving me military power." Diwu Qingro slightly narrowed his eyes. It seemed as if he was recalling the tragic battle of those years. One exchange after another, one battle after another, I, Diwu Qingro, have built up my reputation. I have also accumulated countless military merits. You have no choice but to reward me. And when it reached a certain point, all the commanding power in the front line was in my hands. The overall situation was set. You are no longer able to control me." Diwu Qingro's voice paused for a moment. Then he continued, "Next, I will go on expeditions to the south and the north. Firstly, I will eradicate my enemies. Secondly, I will be an omnipotent commander in the eyes of the world. Even in the eyes of Iron Dragon City, I was the one who was in control of the battle, for the sake of great military exploits." But he was wrong. "What I want is not military merit but power," Diwu Qingro said casually. During that time, the entire Great Zhao Empire's 12 million soldiers were deployed to the battlefield. What I want is familiarity with the army. I want the trust of the generals in the army. And I want to have control over each army. Because I know that you won't give me those things. So I can only fight for them myself. Countless ships and traps. Although Iron Cloud's losses were huge, Great Zhao's casualties were much more than Iron Cloud's. Because there were too many people who were personally set up traps and led into Great Zhao's ambush. And those people were loyal to His Majesty and Great Zhao. But because I didn't trust you, I didn't trust those people. So I wanted people who were loyal to me, Diwu Qingro. Diwu Qingro let out a long sigh. Finally, when the war came to an end and Iron Cloud was weakened, I stopped fighting and returned to the court with unparalleled military merits. Everyone thought that I deliberately gave Iron Cloud a chance to breathe. But that was not the case. Diwu Qingro said, because at that time I only had the army and no politics. So I had to come back and create a political situation that I could control. And at that time, the royal family's control over the country was still very strong. Even if I destroyed Iron Cloud, it would be easy for you to destroy me. So I couldn't go to war at that time. So I gave up the good situation of the war and came back to manage the rear. Diwu Qingro sighed deeply. If you could have trusted me at that time, I would have conquered the country for you by now. Unfortunately, you didn't. So now, it's too late for you to deal with me. Diwu Qingro stood up. The army is the absolute truth. You don't have soldiers or generals. You want to deal with the leader of the army with just a bunch of rotten scholars? Your Majesty, don't you think this is too ridiculous? Zhao's face was pale and his eyes were blank. There are many things I want to say. Many things I wanted to say to you many years ago. But today, I found that there is no need to say anything. Diwu Qingro said casually. There is no need to say anything. Maybe my state of mind has changed. But now I feel that I am somewhat naive. Diwu Qingro said slowly, today I came to talk to you and demonstrate. But I was naive. Diwu Qingro stood up after he finished speaking. He didn't even look at Chu Yang as he casually walked out. Then Diwu Qingro's voice came from outside. Seal this place. Let His Majesty live a good life inside. From today onwards, no one is allowed to come out. Until the end of this war. Yes. After the war, if we win, take His Majesty out to see the good situation. Then behead him. If we lose, behead him. Exterminate the whole clan. Yes. Zhao Zhe heard everything clearly. His eyes rolled and he fainted. Death regardless of victory or defeat. This matter was reversed. It had always been the royal family who ordered the extermination of other clans. But now Diwu Qingro directly ordered the extermination of the royal family? This was really speechless. Great Zhao's purge was still in progress. Moreover, looking at Diwu Qingro's attitude, it would take a while. And at this time the Gu clan finally contacted Gu Duxing. Returned to the clan. The night before Gu Duxing left, Chu Yang whispered to him for half the night. Finally he handed him a big bag. This is for GMO, this is for Dong Wushang, and this is for... Of course most of it was for Mo Qinggu. In the morning breeze, the two brothers stood facing each other. Take care. Take care. These two words were said almost at the same time from the two of them. Then Gu Duxing looked at Chu Yang silently and deeply. Then he turned and left without looking back. Good brother. I met you at a time of danger. You helped me. You gave me hope. You helped me cultivate. You've done everything you can for me. I will not let you down. Never. These words were in Gu Duxing's heart. But he did not say a word. Chu Yang also did not say anything. The parting seemed very simple, but both of them knew that the next time they met would be in 3 days. And not here. On the third day, the Mo clan suddenly became lively. This should not have happened. All the clans were preparing for war in the Conglan battlefront, but the Mo clan was suddenly as busy as a marketplace. On this day, Mo Xingqian was discussing matters with the great elder in the study. Suddenly, a servant came to report. Reporting to clan master, the 2 young masters have arrived. Young masters? Mo Xingqian was surprised. The 2 young masters Jizhu and GMO have arrived. Oh, let them wait in the living room. Inform the Grand Duke to welcome the guests. Yes, young master Jizhu is already drinking tea in the living room. But second young master Ji has gone to the inner residence to find young miss. Young miss? What young miss? Mo Xingqian was surprised. It's young Miss Xiao Wu. The servant lowered his head and pursed his lips in a hidden place. Xiao Wu. Mo Xingqian was surprised. Why is GMO looking for Xiao Wu? Inner residence. Brother GMO. Mo Qingwu's surprised cheer resounded through the entire backyard. She practically flew over. Brother GMO, why are you here? Where's brother Chu Yang? Is he also here? Your brother Chu Yang didn't come. GMO said this sentence and saw Mo Qingwu's small face fall. He hurriedly hugged her in his arms. He comforted her. But even though your brother Chu Yang didn't come, he asked me to bring you many good things. Really? Mo Qingwu opened her eyes wide and became excited. Where? Of course it's true. GMO suddenly realized that something was wrong. Why are you so much lighter? Why are you so thin? Second young master Ji was furious. Who bullied you? No one bullied me. Mo Qingwu's eyes flashed and then dimmed. She raised her face and begged, Brother GMO, I don't want to live here anymore. Can you take me to your house to live? This? GMO hesitated. No. A voice came. Xiao Wu, this is your own house. How can you leave? The one who spoke was an elder from a branch of the Mo clan. He was under the orders of the clan master to invite GMO to the hall. Xiao Wu, what happened? GMO put down Mo Qingwu and slowly stood up. He looked at the king-level master of the Mo clan. Second young master Ji, this. The master hesitated for a while. Seeing GMO's face become more and more ugly, he finally pulled GMO aside and whispered in his ear. 3E Meridian was destroyed? GMO was stunned. After he came to Heavenly Armament Pavilion, Chu Yang didn't tell him about Mo Qingwu's 3E Meridian being destroyed, so he only knew now. Chapter 278. As the younger brother of a big clan, GMO certainly knew the fate of such people who lost their future. He couldn't help but sigh. But this was the Mo clan's internal affairs. Although he was a cousin, it was inconvenient for him to intervene. He could only silently decide in his heart, if there is really a key, then I must do my best to find a good home for my cousin, so that she won't suffer for the rest of her life. You go first. I'll accompany Xiao Wu. I'll be there later, GMO said. Mo Qingwu watched from the side. Her eyes were filled with tears. Her little hands were clasped together, full of uneasiness. Xiao Wu, come. Take a look at the gift that Brother Chu Yang asked me to give you. GMO forcibly suppressed the pain in his heart and pretended to be happy. He took Mo Qingwu's little hand and went to her room. Come take a look at what this is. The first thing GMO took out was a medium-sized jade bottle. Inside this bottle was the vitality spring water that Chu Yang had asked him to bring. A big bottle. What is this? Water? Wine? Mo Qingwu looked at the jade bottle suspiciously. The next moment she gently stroked it. She raised her face and asked hopefully, this jade bottle, is it Brother Chu Yang's? Yes. GMO scratched his head. Chu Yang's jade bottle? What's precious is the water inside, okay? Brother Chu Yang. Mo Qingwu suddenly hugged the jade bottle tightly in her bosom. Big drops of tears fell from her eyes. At this moment, seeing this jade bottle, Mo Qingwu felt as if she had seen Chu Yang himself. The pain that had been suppressed for several months suddenly rushed up like a flood. She cried for a long time. GMO was at a loss. He completely didn't expect that a mere jade bottle would make Mo Qingwu so emotional. After a long time, Mo Qingwu finally stopped sobbing. Drink it quickly. This is a priceless treasure. The vitality spring water. GMO lowered his voice and said, your brother Chu Yang repeatedly told me to watch you drink it with my own eyes. But I can't bear to drink it. Mo Qingwu blinked her big eyes and looked at GMO. There's no more after drinking it. Silly girl, what is there to be reluctant about? GMO hurriedly advised, after drinking this, your body will improve a lot. Moreover, even if you get injured, it won't leave a scar. But I still can't bear to drink it. Mo Qingwu was on the verge of tears. Can I keep it? But if you don't drink, Big Brother GMO will be angry. Ji Mogwan said in confusion. But seeing that it didn't work, he could only say, if your big brother Chu Yang knew that you didn't drink the vitality spring water, that he went through untold hardships for you, he would be heartbroken. Then I'll drink. Mo Qingwu hurriedly nodded vigorously. I'll drink it right away. Seeing Mo Qingwu raise her head and gulp down a bottle of vitality spring water, GMO was stunned. Chu Yang's power is so great. After drinking the vitality spring water, Mo Qingwu hugged the jade bottle to her bosom. Brother Chu Yang, what else did you bring for me? Mo Qingwu asked hopefully. Yes, and this. GMO simply untied the bundle. Inside was a pile of toys of all shapes and sizes. This is good. Mo Qingwu fiddled with it a few times with her small hands and found a bow. It was made of red cloud steel and star iron. It was bright red, reflecting the specks of starlight. It was extremely beautiful. GMO's lips twitched. Every time he saw this bow, he had this reaction. Using the essence of red cloud steel and star iron to make a bow to coax a little girl to play with. In this world, only Chu Yang would be so extravagant, right? This must be given to me by Big Brother Chu Yang. As for the rest, Big Brother GMO bought them yourself, right? Mo Qingwu tilted her head and looked at the bow lovingly as she asked casually. How do you know? GMO was dumbfounded. Mo Qingwu's casual words were the truth. Because this is the only one I like. Mo Qingwu wrinkled her nose. Her smile revealed a long-lost happiness and wisdom. She said, only Big Brother Chu Yang knows what I like. As she said, she looked at GMO with some disdain. She pouted and said, you don't know. GMO fainted. Big Brother GMO, I still have to thank you. Mo Qingwu cherished the jade bottle and the bow in front of her chest. Her face revealed a satisfied smile. Thank you for bringing them to me. You're welcome. You're welcome. GMO suddenly felt very uncomfortable in his heart. Mo Qinggu, the young miss of the Mo clan, was now so coincidental. I'll go and discuss it with Uncle. GMO wanted to say something, but he swallowed it back. He thought, if Uncle doesn't agree, I'll stay and accompany her. No, I can't stay. Songlan Battlefront is still waiting for me to fight. Sigh. Besides, even if I take her to my house, if I'm not there and Big Brother is not there, who can she play with? He shook his head and sighed. He returned to the hall. He told Mo Xingchen about the idea of taking Mo Qinggu to stay for a few days. Sure enough, Mo Xingchen thought for a while and refused. He said, if it's a normal time, it's fine to go and stay for a few days. But now all the big clans are dealing with the 3 Stars Divine Clan in Songlan Battlefront. Why are you still looking after the child? Let's wait until this matter is over. Jiju and GMO had just left. Mo Xingchen was about to rest when he heard someone reporting to Clan Lord. The second Duke of the Luo clan is here to visit Miss Xiaowu. Luo clan? Luo Ergong? Here to visit Xiaowu? Mo Xingchen was really startled this time. Jiju and GMO visiting Mo Qinggu was understandable. After all, they were cousins. But why did this Luo Ergong come? Didn't he know that the Mo clan and the Luo clan were enemies? The 2 clans had been fighting each other for more than 100 years. It could be said that there was an irreconcilable enmity between the 2 clans. This Luo Ergong actually came to visit Xiaowu at this time? Did he have an ulterior motive? Knowing that our clan's genius was crippled, he deliberately came to humiliate us? But even so, he was really too audacious. You should know that if things go wrong, this Luo Ergong may lose his life here. Please come in. Mo Xingchen said indifferently. He stood up at the same time. I'd like to see what this Luo Ergong is here for. Luo Kadi, dressed in a snow-white robe, walked in under the hostile gazes of everyone in the Mo clan. He was calm and collected, not looking sideways. Although Luo Kadi was usually very funny, and his style of doing things was also very unconventional, he was a person who valued relationships the most. Chu Yang is my boss. Boss once said that when I have the chance I should come and dance. Then I must do it because I promised. So what if the Luo clan and the Mo clan are enemies? When I promised boss we were already enemies. If I didn't want to come, I wouldn't have agreed at that time. But since I promised, even if we are enemies I will still come. Even if I die, I will still come. So I came. Under the astonished gaze of Mo Xingchen and the watchful eyes of everyone in the Mo clan, Luo Kadi walked into the Mo clan. According to his request, he met Mo Qinggu. What happened next made even the experienced and knowledgeable Mo clan lord, Mo Xingchen, drop his glasses. Xiaowu. The frost on Luo Kadi's face instantly melted into a bright and affectionate smile, as if he had seen a little sister he hadn't seen in a long time. Wow, brother Luo. Mo Qinggu was also very surprised. She knew that her clan and the Luo clan were not on good terms, but she would never have thought that Luo Kadi would actually risk universal condemnation to come and see her. Mo Xingchen's eyes widened in a split second. Luo Kadi looked at the big and small pair playing happily outside Mo Qingwu's room. Then he patiently listened to Mo Qingwu's long-winded complaints, and then played a game? Then telling stories? Mo Xingchen sighed deeply and quietly retreated. How long has it been since Xiaowu was so happy? Now, after Xiaowu saw her enemy Luo Kadi, she was even more affectionate than seeing her father. Could it be that I was wrong? But, for the clan, even if I am wrong, what can I do? I am the clan lord. Mo Xingchen quietly left. And Luo Kadi also played with Mo Qinggu for a day without worry. Xiaowu, this time your brother Chu Yang sent me to play with you. I can only stay here for a day. Luo Kadi squatted in front of Mo Qinggu and said softly, tomorrow, I will go to Songlan Battlefront. Why do you all want to go to Songlan Battlefront? Mo Qinggu said dazzlingly. But I am so lonely here. There is no one to play with me, and no one to talk to me. Luo Kadi was silent for a while and said, I also don't want to go, but I still want to go very much. It is very dangerous there, but it is also very happy there. There are enemies there, but there are also friends there. As a brother of the Three Heavens clan, it is my responsibility. And a man's responsibility, Luo Kadi said softly. To this Mo Qinggu, who was obviously just a little girl, Luo Kadi didn't have any pretense and easily spoke his mind. Responsibility. Fighting against the Three Stars Divine clan and protecting the Three Heavens continent was their responsibility. There was no room for shirking. When I came, I packed a lot of small gifts for you. I don't know if you will like them. Luo Kadi put down the big package in his hands. Oh right, when your brother Chuyang asked me to come see you, he asked me to pass you a message. Luo Kadi said. What message? Mo Qinggu hurriedly raised her head and pricked up her ears. He said, Little Wu, you must be happy. Luo Kadi said. Brother Chuyang will come to find you and pick you up. Mo Qinggu was stunned. Tears flowed down her white and tender cheeks. For a very long time, she had been looking forward to hearing these words. She had been looking forward to someone to take her away. And today she finally got these words from Brother Chuyang. For a moment, her little heart suddenly felt sour. She was so happy that she wanted to cry. Luo Kadi left. After all, he was an enemy of the Mo clan. He couldn't stay here for too long. The reason he could stay for so long was because Mo Tianyun had already gone to Tsonglan battlefront. If Mo Tianyun was still here, it would be even harder to say. But Mo Qingwu's heart had already calmed down. She felt that she had grown up. Moreover, her heart also had a place to stay. Little Wu, you must be happy. Brother Chuyang will come to find you and pick you up. Mo Qingwu tilted her head and hugged the broken scabbard and jade bottle. Wearing a rainbow starlight bow on her head, she imitated Chu Yang's voice and murmured softly. Her voice was very soft, so soft that it was as if she was having a beautiful dream and was afraid of waking up. Brothers and sisters, the double monthly votes have already started. Please support me. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for it. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 279. Dong Wuxiang followed him. Moreover, Second Master Dong had arrived in a rather shocking manner. Second Master Dong had arrived with a large group of people. The Dong clan had sent a total of 2,400 people to Tsonglan battlefront. And all of them were experts. Dong Wuxiang was riding on a huge 1,000-mile cow. It was swaying back and forth. He also wanted to ride a horse. After all, riding a horse was much more elegant than riding a cow. This cow was a spirit beast. However, a cow was a cow. It wasn't as smooth and beautiful as a horse's. However, Dong Wuxiang's saber was too heavy. In addition, there were other miscellaneous things, special soft armor, and Second Master Dong's tall and sturdy body. So, it was more than 500 kilograms. What kind of horse could carry such a heavy load? Therefore, the 2,400 people of the Dong clan were all riding on tall and big horses. Only the Second Master Dong was riding on a tall and big bull at the front. The Dong clan was east of the Mo clan. The two clans were more than 500 kilometers apart. So it was on the way to Tsonglan battlefront. Naturally, it wasn't on the way to Mo clan's main gate. It was such a coincidence that Second Master Dong had strongly requested this. Therefore, the large group of people had changed their direction and had arrived in a grandiose manner. Dong Wu Lei, who was leading the group, didn't want to change their direction. After all, they would have to travel for at least 2.5 days if they changed their direction. This was too much of a waste of manpower and money. However, the most helpless and humiliating thing for young Master Dong was that he couldn't beat Dong Wuxiang at this moment. Dong Wuxiang blatantly threatened his elder brother. Change your direction if you don't want to lose face in front of these 2,400 people and get beaten up by me. Young Master Dong had no choice but to change their direction after he had cursed for a long time. The sound of carriages and horses neighing was heard. It seemed as if they had come to seek revenge. The 2,400 people of the Dong clan were led by Second Master Dong. They had arrived at the Mo clan's territory in an awe-inspiring and murderous manner. They had arrived at the Mo clan's main gate. Second Master Dong carried his saber and jumped off his horse. Then he shouted at the gatekeeper in a rough voice, "Go! Inform them that the second master of the Dong clan, Dong Wuxiang, has come to visit Miss Mo Qingwu." The guards at the entrance of the Mo clan were already dumbfounded. They were so scared that their legs were cramping. Fuck! Why are they glaring at us? Could it be that they are enemies? As soon as he heard this, he felt as if he had been granted amnesty. He hurriedly turned around and went in to report. Patriarch Mo Xingqian was truly depressed. This time he was really depressed. Why wasn't it over yet? One by one. And to visit our family's youngest daughter who has already become a cripple? The Dong clan and the Mo clan had never interfered with each other. However, the Dong clan was stronger than the Mo clan in terms of strength. Moreover, the relationship between the two brothers of the Dong clan was very good. They weren't like the two brothers of the Mo clan who were at loggerheads with each other. So, it could be said that the Dong clan would certainly suppress the Mo clan in the future. Therefore, Mo Xingqian had no choice but to personally welcome him. When he came out to take a look, he was shocked. So many people are here to visit Xiaowu. Are they here to fucking demonstrate their strength? This must be Patriarch Mo? Dong Wuxiang cupped his hands and respectfully said, Wuxiang has been entrusted by someone to visit Xiaowu. And it just so happens that it's on the way to the Conglan battlefront. I hope Patriarch Mo won't take offense to my rudeness. Nephew Dong, what are you talking about? Please come in quickly. This old man is extremely happy that you've come. Although Mo Xingqian didn't know whether Dong Wuxiang's real intention was to visit Xiaowu or something else, he still had to put on an act. How has Xiaowu been these days? Dong Wuxiang smiled and walked through the door. He already knew the answer. Her 3-yin meridian was crippled, and her qualifications to be groomed by the clan were revoked. It was equivalent to falling from heaven to hell. How could she be well? Besides, this matter wasn't a secret in the 3 heavens anymore. Mo Xingqian rolled his eyes in his heart, but on the surface, he sighed and said, It's all thanks to you. You're wrong. It can't be all thanks to me. Dong Wuxiang glared and said, Since when did I, Dong Wuxiang, have such great fortune? Mo Xingqian was so angry that he looked like a Buddha ascending to heaven. Fuck, aren't your words too unpleasant to hear? I respect you as the second duke of the Dong clan, but this old man personally coming out to greet you is already giving you a lot of face. Why are you still speaking in such an eccentric tone? Everyone says that the 2 dukes of the Dong clan are steady, but why is this person acting like the second duke of the Dong clan today? What he didn't know was that when Dong Wuxiang was in the Heavenly Armament Pavilion, although he was taciturn and didn't like to talk, he was quite fond of Mo Qingwu. Mo Qingwu would often look for him to talk to, which relieved a lot of the boredom of this second young master Dong, and added a lot of fun. Therefore, he especially liked this obedient little girl. This time, when he heard that Mo Qingwu had suffered grievances in the clan because her 3-yin meridian was crippled, Dong Wuxiang was already full of anger. This time, he came to visit Mo Qingwu, but his real purpose was to use this opportunity to vent Mo Qingwu's anger. Therefore, he purposely put on this attitude to disgust people. Besides, he had spent so much time with Luo Kadi and GMO, these 2 hoodlums and bandits. This vivid image of a ruffian didn't need to be pretentious. He just opened his mouth and said it. I don't know how second young Master Dong and my daughter met. Mo Xingqian suppressed his anger. He had to suppress it. In case he offended him, the current strength of the Mo clan was no match for these 2,400 people in front of him. Mo Tunyuan had already led the Mo clan's military force to Conglan battlefront a few days ago. In case this bad-tempered guy flipped out and swept the entire Mo clan, then that would be a great loss of face. It's also a coincidence. Yes, Miss Xiaowu and I hit it off very, very well. I like her very, very much. Dong Wuxiang smiled. Moreover, my big brother also likes her very much. It's like he's afraid she'll melt in his mouth, and afraid she'll fall out of his hands. Your big brother. Mo Xingqian was somewhat startled. Old dog, these 2 words were no joke. Since he called him that, then he definitely wasn't his big brother. It was just that he didn't know when this second young Master Dong had another big brother? This big brother. What kind of earth-shattering character was he? Yes, my big brother. Dong Wuxiang grinned and said, He's also the big brother of GMO, Gu Duxing, Luo Kadi, and the rest of us. He likes Xiaowu very much. Moreover, he gave Xiaowu a treasured saber that he had kept for many years. That saber is our big brother's family heirloom. Back then, there were several saber monarchs in our big brother's clan. They all relied on that saber to dominate the heavens. Emo Xingqian only felt his head explode with dizziness. His body couldn't help but sway twice. Countless stars flashed before his eyes. Saber monarch? Family heirloom? GMO Luo Kudi Gu Duxing, and Dong Wushang's big brother. I'm going to faint. What kind of character is this? If this mysterious big brother knew that the saber he gave to Emo Qingwu was stolen, I wonder what kind of reaction he would have. Would he fly into a rage and rush to the Emo clan? Dong Wushang lowered his eyelids and secretly sized up this Emo clan head's expression. He couldn't help but smile proudly in his heart. This was the method that he, GMO Luo Kudi Miao Butong, and the rest came up with to build momentum for Emo Qingwu. That was bragging. Bragging fiercely. Bragging to your heart's content. There was no fear of bragging, only fear of not daring to brag. Moreover, if such words were spoken by GMO or Luo Kudi, the threat wouldn't be great. Only Dong Wushang had a clan in strength. Moreover, he was almost universally acknowledged as a man of few words, only interested in saber fanatics. Such a person wouldn't lie at all. But if he were to lie to someone, it would be a piece of cake for him to get caught. Nephew Dong, who is this big brother of yours? Emo Xingqian asked cautiously. Previously, he had addressed him as Nephew Dong, but Dong Wushang's tone was very rude, so when he got angry, he changed it to Second Young Master Dong. Now that his heart was shaken, he couldn't help but change it back to Nephew Dong. I can't tell you this. Big brother has strict rules. If he knows that I leaked his information, I won't be able to bear his temper. Dong Wushang chuckled and said, but your Mo clan is really blessed. With Miss Xiaowu, your clan will definitely prosper for a long time. Speaking of which, it's really fate. Big brother is traveling the heavens, but accidentally saved Xiaowu. Cough cough, it's really fate. Second Master Dong was at a loss for words as he made up stories. He could only sigh about fate. After all, he wasn't as eloquent as Luo Kudi and GMO. However, this only made it even more convincing. Traveling the heavens. This sentence gave Emo Xingqian endless fanciful thoughts. Could it be someone from a super clan of the upper three heavens? Yes, to be able to make the four geniuses of the four great clans so convinced, and to think that Big Brother casually gave out a treasure saber that's the best in the world. Such a character could only exist in the upper three heavens, right? And it should be some super clan. Oh, I see. Nephew Dong, please come in. Emo Xingqian hurriedly extended his hand to welcome the guest. He realized that he was still blocking the guest at the door. This was a great disrespect. Yes, I'm going in. But I'm leaving after seeing Xiaowu. I still have to go to the Zhonglan battlefront to play. Dong Wushang squinted his eyes and said, Uncle Emo, you must take good care of Xiaowu. My big brother is currently prescribing medicine for Xiaowu. He won't be here for a while. But I reckon it won't be long before he comes to treat Xiaowu's illness. Dongwu smiled meaningfully and said, my big brother has the ability to transcend the heavens and see through the earth. Emo Xingqian was delighted. He asked suspiciously, but I wonder how confident are you? I can't say for sure. Dong Wushang frowned. Which big brother of yours really has such means? Emo Xingqian asked. Uncle Emo. Dong Wushang stood still and looked at him. He suddenly took down the saber from his shoulder. What do you think of my saber? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.